During my self-introduction in class, I told all the pretty girls that I was single and looking for a relationship. Of course, all the guys were both angry and jealous. However, my main target was the class president. In my previous life, I was her devoted simp, nothing more than a dog that was constantly used by her and her friends, to the point that I got branded as a loser, and my life only got worse after that. But this time, with my knowledge of the future and the system that increases my stats, things are going to be different. She and the girls who wronged me will definitely get what they deserve. On the contrary, each of them is now trying every possible means to win me over. The story begins with the protagonist receiving a rejection after a job interview. A strained smile settles on his face as he nods in understanding. But the moment he steps outside, the interviewers begin to mock him. They discuss his so-called loser achievements, including the time he becomes a lapdog for a girl who drains his savings and humiliates him in the worst way. On the way to the subway station, he reflects on how he has lived his life up to this point. Everything feels pointless, and a dark thought rises. He plans to end it all. But mid-thought, the world around him shifts. A system window materializes before his eyes. It presents a gift pack for unlocking it and demands a wish for it to fulfill. He stares at it in disbelief before eventually wishing to regress to the past. In the next blink, he opens his eyes to find himself in a younger body. Han is genuinely shocked to discover he has been sent back in time. His thoughts scatter when a passenger beside him speaks. The girl's sudden question startles him, and he gestures awkwardly while muttering a distracted response. Then it hits him. He recognizes the date and the girl sitting opposite him. It is 13th August 2013, the period when he attempts to impress the high school beauty, Chen Yanfei. The poor girl clearly feels uncomfortable with his approach back then. But the old Han fails to take the hint. It ends with her screaming for help and calling him a pervert, and the aftermath leaves him badly beaten. Recalling that embarrassing memory now makes him frown at his own past stupidity. Seeking to calm himself, he decides to eat some ramen. A guy nearby makes a rude remark about him. Han recognizes the face instantly, Pan Xiaohang, a rich young master skilled in Ying-style arrogance. In the past, Han would have fallen for the rage bait, but this regression grants him something close to enlightenment. While he prepares hot water for his ramen, the system window appears again. It displays his stats, attributes, and a brief tutorial. In summary, he can upgrade attributes and unlock skills with enough points. Points come from two sources, edging streaks and real money purchases. Han silently celebrates after reading this, finally envisioning a real path to becoming an alpha and farming aura properly. Returning to his seat, he finds Pan Xiaohang attempting to flirt with Chen Yanfei. The attempt ends in brutal rejection, drawing a quiet laugh from Han. Pan immediately directs his anger at him, claiming to be Chen Yanfei's boyfriend, which prompts Chen Yanfei to shut him down even harder. Han observes the scene like a personal cinema, noting how Pan behaves like a simp, just like the old him. A few minutes later, Chen Yanfei returns complaining that all the food has sold out, thanks to the so-called young master. Han offers her a chicken drumstick. She insists on paying, and he accepts, charging only the original price. He even offers an orange as compensation because she pays a little too much. Her expression brightens at the thought of him being so considerate. Pan Xiaohang, however, slams a handful of cash on the table in anger. He had offered to take Chen Yanfei to a fancy meal earlier and was rejected. Yet now she pays a supposed loser for a chicken drumstick. Han refrains from interfering, recognizing that silence is the smartest move. The argument escalates, attracting attention from the surrounding passengers. Annoyed and exhausted, Chen Yanfei walks away. Pan shifts his fury toward Han. He grabs Han by the collar and throws him to the floor, using him as a punching bag to vent his own frustration. Han spits out a small amount of blood, yet he refuses to fight back. A new plan forms in his mind, one that uses Pan Xiaohang himself as the perfect starting point for making fast money. Han lies on a stretcher while a doctor examines him. Chen Yanfei watches with visible concern, and the doctor eventually reports that Han's current condition shows signs of a coma. Meanwhile, Han remains fully conscious. His attention stays locked on the system window hovering in front of him, displaying a list of injuries sustained from Pan Xiaohang's assault. Han mentally curses Pan. The bastard clearly doesn't hold back. Moments earlier, Han had been thrown to the ground as Pan blamed him for Chen Yanfei's rejection. Han responded with a jab, openly calling Pan a loser. Pan grabbed him by the shirt and demanded a repeat, and Han delivered the insult again. A smirk formed as Han added a sarcastic note of gratitude, because without Pan's stupidity, an opportunity to interact with the school goddess would have never appeared. Pan, fed up and humiliated, sent him flying with a punch. The young master appeared fully determined to put him in a hospital bed. That is when Chen Yanfei returned and witnessed the entire scene. She demanded an explanation. Pan panicked and attempted to downplay the situation, but Han simply chuckled and labeled him a loser once more before being shoved aside like trash. Chen Yanfei rushed to check if Han was all right, but before she could get proper answers, Han collapsed for real and lost consciousness. Her panic escalated, and she immediately screamed for a doctor. Later, passengers pointed at Pan Xiaoheng as the source of the chaos. One man gave the officers a detailed account, explaining everything from Pan's initial attempt to flirt with Chen Yanfei to the assault on Han. Pan desperately attempted to defend himself, claiming provocation, but the officer had heard enough. The officer sternly questioned whether Pan had considered the consequences of his actions. Being rich did not grant the right to hit people, and if anything happened to the victim, Pan would be held fully responsible. The weight of those words sank deep. Pan realized prison was a very real possibility. In desperation, he turned to Chen Yanfei for help, but her expression made it painfully clear she wanted nothing to do with him. Seeing no other option, the fool called his parents in tears. While Pan pitifully sobbed into the phone, Han regained consciousness. Chen Yanfei rushed toward him instantly. Han's gaze drifted, as any man's would, unable to ignore the sight before him. She demanded to know why it suddenly appeared, but Han brushed it off. In that moment, Han fully understood why so many failed to resist her charm. Showing concern, she offered to take him to the hospital and pointed out that he had lost a tooth. Chen Yanfei helps him to his feet, guiding him gently until he stands properly. Our protagonist instantly feels grateful for being noticed and helped by the school goddess, even thinking about how kind she is. At that moment, Chen Yanfei remembers they are classmates, which explains why his face looks familiar. Han feels honored she remembers him, while she simply warns him not to make cheeky remarks in his condition. The moment settles, and it reminds Han of the time she told him to work out. He insists he can handle a beating, but he wants to become strong enough to protect the girl standing beside him in the future. That bold, dramatic declaration makes Chen Yanfei let out a laugh. Later, Pan Xiaoheng is taken into custody. Meanwhile, Han is taken to the hospital. A nurse informs him that he's staying in a private room and receiving top-class care. He expresses gratitude for her effort and silently thanks Father Pan for spending so much money on his treatment. Once alone, Han finally has time to explore the system. The experience gained isn't much, but he notices something unusual. All the transportation costs and hospital bills are covered, and every expense is converted into system points. The thought barely settles before it's interrupted by someone arriving. It's the thick blonde friend marching in with flowers in hand. Han becomes embarrassed when she loudly calls his name, so she teases him with a playful nickname, making him blush even harder. Their banter continues until she hands him his glasses. And now the protagonist's mind is already drifting, casually imagining this girl as his future wife. While cutting apples, Chen Yanfei announces that her dad will be visiting soon. She also suggests exchanging contact information. Han is briefly stunned by the idea but agrees. Moments later, Chen Yanfei's dad arrives, and she rushes into his arms with excitement. At the same time, Han receives another guest. Father Pan steps in, bowing his head and apologizing repeatedly for his son's actions. Han tries to stop him, but Father Pan refuses to rise, showing intense remorse. Mother Pan adds her apology, blaming herself for spoiling her son too much. When the topic of compensation arises, Han immediately switches into adorable mode, claiming the incident is partly his fault. In the end, Father Pan decides to settle everything directly. He offers Han 800,000 yuan as compensation. Now the sly one is silently calculating just how many attribute points the system can squeeze out of that amount. Seeing Han Li's expression, Father Pan wonders if the amount offered isn't enough. Han Li instead thanks him, surprising the couple. He recognizes that the uncle is a reasonable man, but this situation has one important exception. The couple looks confused, waiting for an explanation. Han Li calmly states that offering compensation is generous and proves Father Pan is a good person, but the more important thing is for Pan Xiaoheng to understand the situation and genuinely reflect on his mistake. The protagonist is truly unbelievable, extorting money while preaching like a saint. Truly a world-class actor. Father Pan promises to educate his son properly. Han Lei then reveals that he genuinely doesn't want the money, and what he values instead is the sincerity of the uncle. He even warns Father Pan that if something like this ever happens again, things won't end so gently. The poor uncle nods quickly, saying he understands. He even plans to bring his rebellious son to apologize personally. With that, both families take their leave. In the hospital hallway, Father Pan quietly expresses hope that this incident won't damage the two families' relationship. Father Chen reassures him, and after exchanging polite gestures, the Pan couple leaves the hospital. Left alone with his daughter, Father Chen studies her expression and asks what's on her mind. Chen Yanfei insists that Pan Xiaohang simply went too far. Her father understands her thoughts clearly and assures her that the fool will never get anywhere near her again. Chen Yanfei softly adds that things might have been different if Pan Xiaohang had even half the maturity of Han Li. Father Chen immediately notices the shift in her tone. His daughter definitely holds a favorable impression of the protagonist. She grows shy and explains they were classmates in high school, describing Han Li as an easygoing guy before asking what her dad thinks. Father Chen adopts a thoughtful expression and slips into full father mode. He explains that men with that level of maturity usually have their lives planned out. Guys like Han Li are naturally built for success because they prioritize progress over personal feelings. Hearing her father's advice and thinly veiled warning, Chen Yunfei claims she isn't ready for dating. Yet that expression she wears, what exactly is being implied here? Meanwhile, Han Li continues examining the system. He confirms that money spent on him directly converts into system points. While deciding what to upgrade first, he turns to the question of his eyesight. He remembers how, in his previous life, he was constantly mocked for his vision problems. Just like a scene straight out of The Matrix, he closes his eyes, opens them, and the system instantly restores his sight to perfection. Han Li rises from the bed, walks to the mirror, and stares. Seeing his reflection without glasses gives him an entirely different look. Eyes are the mirrors to the soul, a wise man once said. Alluring eyes have a certain texture that can reveal one's hidden beauty. Han still can't believe that a simple fix to his eyesight increased his charm even a little. Just then, his phone buzzes with a notification. He checks it. It's our healthy friend inviting him for a meal at the Confucius Temple. Han replies by reminding her that he's currently toothless, and instead, he asks for a book. Chen Yanfei is momentarily stunned by his request. She agrees and starts wondering what kind of book our sly protagonist wants. The cunning one teases her, making her pout adorably. Father Chen notices his daughter's reaction and immediately wonders who might be getting into trouble. The next day, Chen Yanfei hands Han a book. Seeing his lukewarm reaction, she wonders if he doesn't like it. Han quickly explains that it's not that he dislikes it, he just had something else in mind. Yanfei, enjoying his honesty, smiles and hands him a manga instead. Han is impressed that she knows his taste so well. Feeling praised, she playfully suggests he call her sister. It might mean nothing special, or perhaps something important in Chinese culture. Chen Yanfei suddenly senses a different look in Han's eyes. Awkwardly, he tries to defend himself with a playful tone. Flustered, she comments that ditching his glasses made him look completely different today. Han appreciates the compliment and even strikes a charming pose, claiming that next time he'll look even more husband material. Of course, she doesn't believe him and teases him, but Han gives a confident thumbs up. Anything is possible with the help of the system. After their chat, our healthy friend decides to head home and promises to visit Han the next day. She waves goodbye but suddenly turns back to add that her dad will be coming too, leaving poor Han confused and flustered at the same time. Not long after, Pan Xiaohang arrives, apologizing profusely. His parents are with him, clearly moved by their rebellious son's sincere apology. Han Li proudly accepts, but not without giving Pan Xiaohang a little lecture, which naturally irritates him. Our protagonist signs the transfer agreement. In addition to the 800K compensation, Father Pan generously adds 200K more, rounding the total to $1 million. Now that he has money, Han decides to invest it all into system points at first, but then he rethinks it. Maybe that's a bad idea. He still needs money for tuition and daily expenses. Shortly after, Chen Yanfei enters with her father. Han is surprised when Father Chen also tries to give him money. He immediately refuses, pointing out that Yanfei was also a victim and shouldn't be responsible. Apparently, this was just a test. Father Chen smiles and invites Han to visit the Chen family from time to time. Judging from Han's attitude, he assumes his grades must be excellent. He even adds that if Han's college is close to his daughter's, he hopes Han will take good care of her. Han reveals that he studies at Shanghai University, in other words, very close to Yanfei. As he prepares to leave, he awkwardly mentions that he's from the humanities department, a field that doesn't usually get much recognition. Of course, the thick one expresses disbelief after hearing this. Both father and daughter stare at him speechlessly. This prompts Han Li to explain that in the past, he didn't take his studies seriously, but now he has realized his mistake. That's why he has decided to turn over a new leaf. Father Chen is impressed, adding that dwelling on past mistakes is simply a waste of time. He then wonders if Han plans to start a business with the huge amount of money he just received. Han Li explains that he does have plans, but first he wants to finish college and improve himself. Once again, Father Chen is impressed by our young protagonist. Chen Yanfei waves him goodbye with a cheerful smile. Of course, our protagonist blushes, thinking about how cute she looks, but now it's time to begin his plan. First, he's discharged from the hospital. His thoughts reveal that in 2 years, real estate prices will skyrocket, and anyone who invests early will benefit greatly. So that's exactly what he does. His first stop is a real estate agency. He requests to purchase small units between 40 to 60 square meters, built within the last 20 years in the school district. An agent guides him to a table to discuss the negotiation and explains the available options. After a long discussion, Han signs the lease agreement. He has officially become a landlord, purchasing 2 units. His plan is to rent them out to cover his monthly expenses, and eventually sell them once the prices reach their peak. This thought makes him remember his parents. Later, he personally checks one of the units. It's a deluxe presidential suite. Our protagonist feels a strong sense of achievement, a huge upgrade compared to his previous life. But then he remembers his missing tooth. Calling on the system, he demands it restore his tooth. To his shock, nothing happens. Checking the system interface, he discovers the issue. He needs to allocate points and upgrade the system to level 2 to unlock that feature. He does so immediately, and Han Li feels a strange sensation in his body. His mind grows clearer, sharper, as if his brain is about to burst open. Knowledge from physics, advanced mathematics, and countless other subjects streams into his head. Overwhelmed by the flood of information, he faints. When he opens his eyes, he's hit with a headache. Checking the system again, Han Li discovers new changes. Several skills related to accounting and finance have been added. This makes him reflect on the insane benefits of absorbing knowledge so easily. Just then, his phone rings. It's staff from the school administration board, informing him that his 15-day leave is over. Hoping for an extension, Han explains that he's still recovering in the hospital and needs more time, but the call ends abruptly. At the same moment, the system notifies him that his consumption level has increased, meaning he'll now have to spend more points to upgrade attributes and the system itself. Naturally, Han Li is not happy about this. Then another prompt appears. A new feature has been unlocked, giving him a low chance of receiving consumer gifts depending on his spending habits. Han Li takes note of this and decides to explore it later. Finally, the day he returns to school arrives. Our protagonist instantly catches the attention of all the e-girls. Before coming to school, Han made several facial adjustments, and now he looks like a full K-pop idol. At this rate, he's really about to make half the guys on campus lose their girlfriends. Later, our protagonist visited the student affairs office. He reported to the man in glasses that he was delayed due to medical reasons. To prove it, he even showed his medical records, confirming he was truly at the hospital. The man was taken by surprise and hoped everything was fine before asking if Han Li brought the necessary school documents. He then explained the school accommodation procedures, but our protagonist only nodded absent-mindedly. In his past life, he remembered this man wasn't a good person, but fortunately he was stupid, which meant he was easy to control. So Han Li thanked him for his hard work and asked about the dorm he would be staying in. The man revealed that the dorm assigned to him was quite lively. Understanding the hint, Han slipped him some cash before casually requesting a quiet dorm because of the doctor's prescription. The man accepted instantly and promised to assign him to a 4-person quiet dorm, but added that it would be more costly. Han Li didn't mind. He clearly remembered being assigned to the crazy dorm in his previous life and had no intention of reliving that nightmare. So he pulled out his black card, ready to pay any amount for a peaceful school life. Later, we see our blonde friend receiving a text from him. Of course, she was happy he arrived safely at school. She responded with a couple of health and wellness tips, which Han Li genuinely appreciated. Browsing through the system, Han Li reflected on the changes in his appearance and wondered if he might startle his parents. Shaking off the thought, he headed out to buy daily necessities. After returning from shopping, he considered changing his phone. But a street vendor selling books caught his attention. Approaching him, Han Li asked for the price of a book. The vendor offered it for 100 yuan, prompting Han Li to ask if he was selling second-hand books at original prices. Desperate, the guy offered another book, which looked more like a printed version of OnlyFans. In the middle of this chaotic transaction, the system suddenly rang out, awarding him a consumer gift for purchasing a set of life manuals. Han Li stared at the gift in disbelief. The system explained that by reading those manuals he would gain 1 level of intelligence each time he leveled up. In other words, it was designed to gradually increase his IQ. Meanwhile, the vendor snapped him back to reality, wondering if Han Li had lost his mind. The next scene takes place in the classroom. Our protagonist walked in together with the professor. Immediately, the ladies blushed red and stared at him like he was a celebrity. The professor instructed the class to be quiet and told the late student who had just entered to introduce himself. Han Li reflected on how in his past life he lacked confidence, which led to the whole class laughing and mocking him. But this time would be different. He stood in front of the class and introduced himself as Han Lai, from the City of Dreams. He explained that due to hospitalization he was delayed, but he was happy to meet everyone. Han Li was basically farming aura at this point, and the beta guys were annoyed that he was getting all the ladies' attention. During his speech, a girl whispered to her friend, asking what she thought about the new handsome student. Meanwhile, Han Li wrapped up his introduction, boldly calling out to all the single ladies in the classroom. He even revealed he had never been in a relationship and was very easy to please. Forget it. Our protagonist is dangerous. He's basically setting the entire classroom on pursuit mode. If the guys were annoyed before, now they were absolutely furious, thinking he was full of himself. Meanwhile, Han Li simply labeled them as a bunch of weak beta fools. Predictably, the moment class ended, he was instantly swarmed by a group of excited girls. Our brother is literally suffering from success. That's when the class president arrived. She confidently introduced herself as Ting Ting, explaining she came to collect the class dues and get his contact so she could add him to the group chat. Han Li knew from his past life that Ting Ting was one of the 3 top beauties of the school. But despite her looks, she was the one who deceived him and turned him into her lapdog, so much so that he almost dropped out of school. Keeping this memory in mind, Han Li jokingly asked if this was her excuse to get his number. Of course, she was momentarily caught off guard. She quickly played it off, pretending she was just doing her job as class president. Han Li then asked how much the class fee was. She replied, 200 yuan, while secretly assuming he was the same gullible guy she could manipulate again. Han Li handed her the money. Suddenly, another hand reached from behind, as if someone was trying to steal Ting Ting away. But it was actually her friend, who surprised her and immediately seized the chance to ask for Han Li's contact. This girl truly had everything going for her in front. Seeing Han Li's confused expression, she moved closer and introduced herself as Yu Yun from Jiangnan. Han Li, clearly uninterested in conversation, tried to keep things short, but the inflated one began teasing his name, trying to flirt. This made our protagonist instantly develop a deep interest in his phone screen. Yu Yun wondered if she had pushed him too far. Trying to shift the topic, she commented on his phone. Han Li casually replied, saying it's a cracked phone. She, on the other hand, was thinking Han Li must be some rich young master because of the aura he carried, only for him to casually reveal he was broke. Yu Yun was shocked and left fuming. Han Li's thoughts then revealed why he didn't bother entertaining her. In his previous life, she was one of the girls who pretended to like his gifts but never appreciated anything. Watching him reject both ladies caught the attention of the entire class. Han Li calmly explained that he didn't judge people by appearance, he valued inner beauty, which made Ting Ting stare at him with new interest. The scene shifts to the school dorms later that day. Han Li pointed to his assigned room and climbed the stairs. Inside, he had 3 roommates, each busy with their own activities, until they suddenly froze, realizing someone had walked into the room. Han Li had arrived. Instantly, the atmosphere becomes hostile. Regardless, Han Li ignores the idiots and heads straight to his bed on the top bunk. He casually pulls out a crosshammer from his backpack. The one wearing glasses is obviously terrified. Our protagonist isn't in danger, he is the danger. Seeing this, the group becomes convinced that Han Li is definitely not normal. Surprisingly, they all plan to leave the room. Han Li casually asks where they're going. The bald guy quickly makes an excuse, suddenly remembering they all have plans with their girlfriends. Han Li is skeptical, but the entire group bolts before he can even finish a sentence. Han Li's roommates are a bunch of cowards, and he wonders if he might have scared them too much. The next day, at the cafeteria, our protagonist becomes the hot topic of discussion. Hearing all this, the class president shows no interest in the subject, until Han Li appears after an intense morning workout. One of the girls greets him with a cheerful smile, and he responds politely before heading back to his dorm. On his way, the inflated one approaches him, curious about how he managed to secure a room on the lower floor. Apparently, that area is reserved for rich college kids, but Han Li simply calls it luck, saying he was assigned there. Just then, his roommate appears, still furious about yesterday's incident. But he freezes in shock the moment he sees our protagonist. The atmosphere instantly turns tense. The guy is about to wish he wore a different color of pants. Thankfully, his two other roommates step up to defuse the situation, expressing obedience like trained dogs. Han Li finds their reaction a bit dramatic. He plans to head to the classroom using the elevator, but the elevator suddenly gets swarmed by girls. Our protagonist stands to one side, feeling awkward as he's the only male inside. And Ting Ting tries to make a favorable impression on him. Like one of those annoying pop-up ads that won't go away. The elevator doors open. Someone places a hand on our protagonist's shoulder. The guy moves closer, trying to start a conversation, but Han Li has already reached enlightenment and instantly recognizes the guy's intention. Our protagonist checks his wallet. Turns out the guy was trying to steal from him, but he gets caught. Panicking, the thief runs off, hoping never to cross paths with Han Li again. The class president calls out to him. She reminds him of his introduction speech, where he promised to get along with everyone. He counters by asking if getting along includes being used by people the moment he enters the classroom. Yu Yun has already saved seats for them and signals for him to come over. She also studies the class president's expression. Surprisingly, the class president agrees with Han Li's assessment when it comes to making friends. Acting cute, she asks what kind of friends he wants to have. Han Li teasingly responds that he prefers the kind who don't ask too many questions. Yu Yun bursts into laughter. She apologizes to her friend, explaining that the remark just caught her off guard. Now serious, she demands that Han Li give her his contact. Han Li tries to refuse politely, while Ting Ting watches with an upset expression. She's irritated because our protagonist ignored her text. She asks if he doesn't take the class president seriously. Our protagonist searches for a proper answer, knowing he can't mention that he didn't see her message because he was busy chatting with Chen Yanfei. After thinking for a moment, he responds that he was just busy yesterday. Ting Ting frowns and suddenly becomes extremely focused on her book. Although she admits Han Li is undeniably good-looking, she thinks he's way too arrogant, and she must keep her distance from someone like him. The next moment, she's alarmed. She's stunned to see our protagonist studying frantically. Han Li mentally notes his current problem while studying. You see, having knowledge from the system is definitely an advantage, but the downside is that his thoughts are completely in disarray. This is why he keeps solving as many problems as possible and studies frantically. Ting Ting notices this right away. She speaks up, pointing out that they haven't even gotten to that part of the lesson yet. But Han Li wonders if she's implying he can't study the material by himself. That thought annoys her a bit. With his self-study ability, how did he even end up in the humanities department? As if reading her mind, Han Li explains how he is a genius but was simply not serious before and lost motivation to study. Both girls are stunned, and the inflated one looks especially impressed. However, Ting Ting believes he's lying. But the inflated girl, already infatuated, believes him completely. Well, the reason is simple. Our protagonist is built different, completely unlike the other guys. This prompts Han Li to reflect on his past life. Yu Yun used a lot of naive boys and eventually married the moment she found a rich one. Regardless, Han Li turns to the class president and asks for her opinion if she doesn't believe him. Seeing this as her moment to shine, she straightens up seriously. She explains that Han Li was a genius in high school but hated studying. Recently, his girlfriend cheated on him with a rich guy, and when he tried to seek revenge, he got beaten up. She adds that this is why he was hospitalized. This experience made him determined to take his studies seriously to get back at them. And that's also why he doesn't want to get close to any girl. He's afraid of repeating the same mistake. Ting Ting is convinced by this explanation and concludes that this is why our protagonist is different from other guys. Hearing her describe him like some main character in a novel, he teases her, asking if she writes web novels. Ting Ting is startled and embarrassed by his question. This surprises Han Li, and even though she tries to brush it off, it's painfully obvious. Han Li notes inwardly that her behavior is interesting. Although in his past life she is one of the people who deceived him, she is undeniably good in every other aspect. She's hardworking, almost too perfect, making her difficult to approach. He heard she got married after graduation, but the marriage didn't go well. While thinking about all this, he suddenly remembers something. In his past life, back when he would go to the library, he once saw a message pop up from one of her fans asking for an update on her novel. This makes Han Li wonder if she has two personalities, one as an author and the other as the strict class president. Nonetheless, the sly protagonist is now on a mission to uncover and unravel her secret for himself. Because of Han Li's earlier remark, Ting Ting keeps focusing on her book. Look at her, already red in the face, just thinking about our protagonist. She is distracted and starts wondering if he suspects something. The bell rings, signaling the end of class, and Yu Yun immediately tries inviting Han Li to the cafeteria. His reply is the usual rejection, prompting the inflated one to dramatically cry because he keeps turning her down. Later, our protagonist returns to his dorm and thinks about purchasing a phone and a laptop the next day. They'll probably be expensive since he has zero experience buying electronics, but there isn't anything he can do about it. The moment he enters the room, his roommates instantly feel overwhelmed by his aura. Damn. Our protagonist really traumatizes these guys. The next day, Han Li heads to the phone store. He swipes his credit card and buys an iPhone. After that, he purchases a new SIM card and a laptop. His payment triggers a consumer gift from the system. What he receives is a NASA SIM card with insane features. Unlimited data, automatic access to anyone's number just by knowing their name, and his own number becomes completely untraceable. If he uses this correctly, he might even find the class president's secret web novel account. Meanwhile, the class president and the inflated one are busy discussing our protagonist. In the middle of their conversation, Ting Ting's phone buzzes with a message. She checks it and discovers it's from Han Li, texting her with a new number, and telling her not to spread it. She is momentarily taken aback. He actually took the initiative to message her first. Turning to Yu Yun, Ting Ting explains she discovered a scary post, but it turns out it was just the inflated one being added to Han Li's WeChat. Ting Ting can only complain inwardly. He told her not to spread his contact, yet he's out here doing the exact opposite. Meanwhile, the protagonist is busy searching for the class president's web novel account. With his current skills in literature and writing, he plans to use future trends to his advantage and make a big profit. After searching for a while, he finally lands on her account. Sadly, the account requires answering a questionnaire before accepting a friend request. Han Li simply types whatever he thinks will impress her and clicks submit. Later in class, the moment he enters, Yu Yun suggests he come sit beside her. Some students begin whispering, wondering if Yu Yun is actually chasing the protagonist. Han Li didn't expect her to be this bold. In his previous life, she never acted this forward. Turning around, he notices the class president deliberately ignoring him. He knows it won't last long. Soon she'll be willing to be his personal lapdog. Our protagonist observes the classroom atmosphere, reflecting on each classmate's life from his past life. He notes that this is the point where their school life truly begins. Just then, Yu Yun turns to him and asks why he didn't reply to her text. Normally, this is the moment the beta guys start advertising themselves as different, and as expected, they don't fail to seize the chance to show off. One guy in particular is going all out, Duan Xiao. He claims he's from a rich family owning 4 buildings. Obviously, he's doing everything to get the inflated one's attention. Everything seems to be going smoothly for him. He even offers one of the buildings to Han Li. That is, if Han Li can afford the rent after graduation. Our protagonist remembers, this fool is a second-generation rich kid, but the so-called generational wealth is actually the combined contribution of his entire family. Out of the 4 apartments he brags about, one belongs to his parents. Basically, he's from an average family. Not rich, not poor, just a clown with confidence. From Ting Ting's observation, although she considers Duan Xiao from a wealthy family, she still rates him as low. She even thinks he's a worthless person with great utility. Unlike our protagonist, her ideal type is someone balanced and exceptional in every way. She even starts planning to use him as inspiration for her next novel. Meanwhile, Duan Xiao continues boasting. Our protagonist refuses to give him a reality check, which only fuels the guy's arrogance. Seeing how hard Han Li studies, one girl wonders if he plans to transfer to another school. Now all the girls interested in him anxiously wait for his answer. If he says he's transferring departments, half the girls might actually cry. Sensing the tension, he reveals it's too early to decide. However, she points out he's studying textbooks, which apparently aren't even required at their school. Look at her, acting all innocent while intentionally making things difficult for him. Duan Xiao jumps in again, asking if he really intends to change universities. But Han Li doesn't want to reveal specifics. One guy thinks Han Li is bragging too much and declares he'll eat a pound of Yu Yun's crap if Han Li succeeds. Yu Yun is flustered that the guy said something so perverted and disgusting. Surprisingly, the protagonist plays along, suggesting the idiot should request she feed him. Now it's Ting Ting's turn to burst into laughter. Yu Yun pouts and lightly hits Han Li. She finds it funny, but she still doesn't want him acting like the other guys in the classroom. Poor guy. When the others say stuff like this, it's disgusting. But when the protagonist says it, it's hilarious. The favoritism is painfully obvious. Trying to steal back the spotlight, Duan Xiao begins boasting again. He offers to waive some rent on Han Li's lease since he can only work so hard to afford so little. He's clearly provoking him, but it's finally time to bring the fool back to reality. Han Li begins by accepting the fool's offer, causing the entire room to fall into stunned silence. He instantly feels like a monkey in a zoo with everyone staring at him. Meanwhile, Ting Ting is impressed by how he handled the fool's provocation. Ting Ting's eyes sparkle with excitement. With Han Li's ability, getting into a better university doesn't seem difficult at all. Han Li is momentarily taken by surprise when he hears the class president actually praising him. Hearing this, Duan Xiao also becomes curious about what our protagonist is truly capable of. When he takes Han Li's book, he is shocked to see that Han Li only writes the answers and doesn't show any steps on how he solved the problems. A smarter girl examines the paper and confirms that all the answers are indeed correct. Han Li casually takes the paper back, saying the problems are so simple he solved them mentally. Now the entire class is in amazement. Solving such difficult problems mentally is unheard of. Some girls even start actively approaching him, asking for private tutoring sessions in their rooms. Meanwhile, Duan Xiao is furious because his attempt to gain attention is failing, and all the girls are now flocking to Han Li instead. To salvage what's left of his reputation, he desperately insists that Han Li should work hard. Maybe in 10 years he might have enough money to make a down payment on one of his family's apartments. Everyone can clearly see he's trying way too hard to secure attention. The inflated girl, who is obviously looking for a rich guy, wonders if what he claims is even true. Meanwhile, the class president senses that our protagonist's silence means he's ready to put Duan Xiao in his place, and she is eagerly waiting to see how he plans to humiliate the fool. Predictably, our protagonist begins by laughing. He doesn't like how Duan Xiao keeps exaggerating his wealth. Duan Xiao snaps back angrily, but Han Li simply points out that if the wealth and contributions of an entire family group count as his personal riches, then sure, he is very rich. Duan Xiao freezes after hearing this. Recovering, he accuses Han Li of spouting nonsense. The sudden confrontation draws the attention of the entire classroom. But Han Li is confident, armed with his past knowledge. He starts breaking down Duan Xiao's so-called properties, one by one. He even goes into the history of the guy's family and their business approach. The more he speaks, the more uncomfortable Duan Xiao becomes, until he is completely speechless. Now the class president becomes even more interested and wants to find out more about our protagonist's background. Poor Duan Xiao just wants attention, but instead he ends up getting lectured by Han Li about his family's business history. In summary, Han Li makes it clear that the fool's background isn't impressive at all. The poor guy is now being stared at with pitiful looks, the entire class falls silent, and the idiot finally apologizes after realizing his place. Once again, Ting Ting gives him a pitiful look, calling him a loser who can't even speak back after getting humiliated. However, she notes that Han Li's handling of the situation is truly impressive. Considering his temperament, she finally decides to feature him as a dominant CEO in her next novel. Poor girl secretly wants to be dominated by our protagonist. When class ends, Yu Yun invites Han Lai and her friend to join her at the cafeteria. Trying to avoid her as usual, Han Li explains that he doesn't have money, and the cafeteria is a bit expensive. The inflated one can't believe he says that after getting himself a new iPhone, Han Li reveals he only got the phone after draining all his savings. She is clearly annoyed. She offers to cover his portion, and Han Li is surprised, warning her that he might not pay her back. But she insists he doesn't need to, all while wondering what the hell is wrong with him. It's safe to say she is ready to do anything just to hang out with him. Playfully, Han Lai agrees and shamelessly claims he loves the idea of living off other people. This causes one girl to burst into laughter. The class president also notes that our protagonist is really funny. Of course, Yu Yun grows embarrassed after hearing his shameless comment. She gives our protagonist a small lesson, then pouts and refuses to listen to his explanation. Now the inflated one begins questioning herself. It's not like her to take the initiative with a guy. The green-haired girl suddenly chimes in, suggesting she should pay for Han Lai's lunch instead. Han Li shamelessly agrees, saying he doesn't mind being supported by two women. While the girls discuss, our protagonist thinks to himself that their sudden interest must be thanks to Duan Xiao's public humiliation. Although both girls are beautiful, he doesn't want to get involved. The green-haired girl is genuinely looking for love, while the inflated one is clearly a gold digger. Even though the inflated one is discussing politely with the green-haired girl, her mind is focused entirely on our protagonist. Considering his behavior, she concludes he acts this way because he's used to being surrounded by beautiful women. She knows the competition to get his attention will be tough, but if he really comes from a rich family, it will be worth it. Anyway, the green-haired girl once again offers to pay for Han Lai's lunch. She reminds Yu Yun that she just bought new skincare products and must be short on cash. The inflated one is taken aback. Apparently those skincare products were a gift from one of her lapdogs. Suddenly, the conversation turns into a subtle contest over who gets to pay for our protagonist's meal. Han Li breaks the tension by suggesting they all just go eat. On the way to the cafeteria, Yu Yun suddenly asks why he changed his phone. Han Li gives a vague response, but it feels like it's directed more toward the class president. Changing the topic, the green-haired girl asks if it's true he has never dated before. When our protagonist responds positively, one of his male classmates sneers. Han Li turns around, and Duan Xiao immediately jumps in, apologizing and insisting the guy was just talking about buying baby oil for a friend. Yu Yun comments that Han Li is really modest. He doesn't respond. The green-haired girl smirks and asks what type of girl he likes. The class president listens closely, clearly interested. Han Lai thinks for a moment before revealing his type. A girl who isn't extremely beautiful but gentle, someone who understands him, shares his values, and most importantly feels comfortable to be around. Now Yu Yun finally understands why he doesn't have a girlfriend. Our protagonist is a bit demanding, just like most men. Hearing this, he asks what they think guys actually want in a girl. Yu Yun gestures, saying he knows the answer, while thinking to herself that she is inflated in all the right places and proudly having G-cups. Surely that's impressive. The green-haired girl gives her honest opinion, but she also thinks Ting Ting is extremely beautiful, and Yu Yun is inflated, meaning she herself needs to find a strategy to win Han Li over. Ting Ting also thinks quietly. She doesn't like the protagonist to that extent, but she hates the idea of losing to rivals just to get his attention. She finds all this comparing and competing childish, but she realizes if she doesn't compete, someone, most likely Yu Yun, will take the protagonist for herself. At the cafeteria, the inflated one shows up with a bag full of fruits. However, our protagonist is nowhere to be seen. He suddenly appears behind her. Apparently, he took it upon himself to buy dessert for everyone. The girls are shocked to discover he bought the exact desserts each of them likes. However, the class president hesitates to accept his kind gesture. So Han Li playfully insists that if she doesn't want it, he'll just eat it himself. She immediately starts eating. Yu Yun suddenly asks how he knows their dessert preferences. And on top of that, the desserts aren't cheap. He explains that the food they bought for him isn't cheap either. In other words, he's simply returning the gesture. The green-haired girl, Fei Fei, jumps into the conversation. The inflated one doesn't like this at all, but she tries her best to hide it. Han Lai, being shameless as ever, notes that if he relies only on Yu Yun spending on him, she'll eventually go broke. That's why he's going to rely on Feifei as well. Of course, Feifei agrees immediately. They chat for a bit, but our protagonist is quietly thinking to himself. In his previous life, these girls didn't even give him a glance. But now here they are, competing for his attention and for the privilege of buying him lunch. Ting Ting is also observing. Judging by his behavior, he probably isn't interested in Fei Fei or Yu Yun. Mid-thought, he calls out to her and offers her an orange. She tries to keep her distance. As usual, Han Li just chuckles. Compared to Fei Fei and Yu Yun, he is far more interested in Ting Ting. After all, she's the girl who made his school life hell in his previous life, so it's only natural he wants revenge and plans to make her pay for it. After lunch, our protagonist returns to his dorm and finds his roommate waiting. The guy tries inviting him for lunch, but Han Li refuses the moment he hears the word lunch. Suddenly, he asks how the fools behaved all night. The bald guy stammers his way through a response, insisting it was nothing. Han Li notes that these rich kids will eventually find new ways to entertain themselves. In his past life, VIP club revenue skyrocketed because of people like them. Our protagonist just sits there thinking, with his knowledge of the future, the amount of money he'll make will eventually rival the most prestigious families. The next day arrives, and it immediately turns into another contest for our protagonist's attention. The competition is fierce. The inflated one is already thinking of strategies to win him over. Meanwhile, Han Li is bored by their constant pestering. The only reason he even comes to the cafeteria is because of Ting Ting. Time passes slowly, and our protagonist settles back into his routine, working out during the day, studying at night, and planning his future. Our brother has his life figured out. His popularity skyrockets across other departments in the school. While browsing on his computer, he checks the school forum. He finds the community just as lively as it was in his previous life. Just then, he receives a message from the class president. The text reveals that she has made plans for the following day. Han Li responds, wondering what he should do with this information. He's clearly teasing Ting Ting, making her furious considering she paid for the trip without asking him. He eventually stops thinking about it and focuses on her virtual version instead. Finally, she replies, and he decides to confirm whether it's really her. The following day, Han Li arrives at the gathering the class president organized. Right after ending a call with his parents, the inflated one gestures for him to come over. She moves quickly to secure him for herself, leaving Fei Fei feeling awkward. Ting Ting finally appears and insists they enter the subway together. A random student gets flustered and compliments her legs. Han Li wonders what's so great about her chopstick legs. He knows that in the future, not just her legs, her whole body will transform once she hits the gym and gains weight in all the right places. Perhaps that's when he'll start thinking about smashing her. Ting Ting urges everyone to hurry while also thinking of ways to get closer to our protagonist. She believes nothing will go wrong, until Duan Xiao suddenly appears, cursing loudly. A student snaps at him, asking if he thinks everyone is as rich as him with 4 apartments. Immediately, both of them look ready to throw hands. Ting Ting angrily steps forward to defuse the situation. Meanwhile, the inflated one seizes the chance to cling to Han Li. Fei Fei finally gets fed up with Yu Yun's antics and joins in. Well, as they say, two can play that game. Han Li suddenly finds himself trapped between them, and neither girl plans on letting go. Just as he wonders how he can escape, Ting Ting, still trying to calm the fight, turns and shoots him a glare that clearly says "help me." He pretends to walk over to her. But the next second, he bolts, claiming he has a stomachache. This damn guy always knows how to mess with her. Furious, Ting Ting gives the group instructions on what to do by themselves. Meanwhile, somewhere else, Han Li receives texts from Yu Yun and Fei Fei. Each one asks where he went and invites him to hang out if he's free. Our protagonist is truly suffering from success, but he decides to focus on his main goal, Ting Ting. Later, Ting Ting walks through the park, venting her frustrations. Just then, she receives a message from Han Li asking for help. At first, she refuses to respond, but curiosity gets the better of her. Han Li claims his stomach hurts and he is stuck in the toilet, with no toilet paper, causing Ting Ting to laugh at him. She reminds him it's the men's restroom, and she can't possibly go inside. But in her heart, she's thinking, finally, this boy has fallen into my hands. Han Li insists she should ask the janitor. She agrees only if he calls her by a sweet nickname. She imagines, cute, angel, adorable fairy, but knowing Han Li, he replies by calling her mommy, madam, and sister. Now Ting Ting wonders if the heavens sent this guy specifically to annoy her. She decides to ignore him completely, thinking he doesn't even know how to treat a girl properly. But then guess who surprises her with ice cream right when she's thinking about him? Han Li begins explaining his personal love principle. First, intentionally provoke a girl. Then, follow up with a surprise that stirs her emotions. Through this emotional fluctuation, a relationship can grow stronger. By mastering this technique, he claims, one can easily attract girls. Still, Ting Ting is somewhat upset. Seeing this, he cracks a small joke to lighten the mood. Ting Ting's face turns completely red, but she still refuses to accept the ice cream. Eventually, after his persistent teasing, she gives in. This prompts Han Li to joke again. She bursts into genuine laughter, leaving him momentarily stunned. She still thinks our protagonist can be a bit annoying, but that brief moment makes her realize why Yu Yun and Fei Fei are fighting so hard for his attention. Ultimately, she decides to give him a chance. It has officially become a contest of 3. At that moment, Han Li's system suddenly rings. He acquires the Riz leveling skill, and the sly one wastes no time pouring points into it. Confident that with this skill, he is basically unstoppable when flirting. Turning to Ting Ting, he teases her again. Irritated, she tries to lecture him, but Han Li attempts to clarify that he was only joking. Before she can respond, a kid bumps into her from behind, and she falls straight into Han Li's arms. For a moment, her mind goes completely offline. Han Li checks on her and reminds her to be careful, noting that the park is full of kids running around. Ting Ting walks back to her seat, venting about the problems in their class. Han Li sits beside her and listens patiently before giving suggestions and advice. After this short exchange, she finds him surprisingly reliable. In the middle of their banter, the inflated one suddenly appears. She announces she has been looking for the class president. But the moment she sees Ting Ting and Han Li together, she freezes and wonders what exactly the class president and our protagonist are doing alone. Pushing the thought aside, Yun Yun walks over to Ting Ting, saying she has been looking for her. Ting Ting apologizes for not checking her phone while playfully comforting her. Meanwhile, our sly protagonist enjoys the scene until he suddenly gets a bad feeling. So when Yun Yun turns to him and suggests he follow them, Han Li literally ghosts the both of them. Confused, she wonders where he went. Seeing this, Ting Ting decides to call him. When Han Li answers, he makes up an excuse, claiming he has unfinished business. This immediately annoys the class president. Later, Han Li takes some time to chat with Chen Yanfei. She is happy to finally spend a moment with him, and he finds her expression cute. Soon after, he appears behind the class president and suggests they all go out to eat. Yun Yun happily agrees on the spot. The scene changes. Our protagonist ends up paired with the inflated one. She shows him a pair of bunny ears and asks for his opinion, clearly paying attention to his preferences. Apparently, Han Li is stuck with Yun Yun because the class president is still annoyed with him. Still, he asks why she didn't follow the class president. She explains that she didn't want to let him wander alone, all while thinking this is her chance to gain an advantage. Thinking this, she playfully grabs his hand. The two of them eventually arrive at a jewelry store. Han Li spots a necklace and realizes it's the same one he bought for her in his past life, the necklace she never liked. When Han Li asks if she wants it now, she happily agrees. As he makes the purchase, the protagonist reflects on how, in his past life, he drained all his savings to buy her this very necklace because he was in love. Now that he no longer has feelings for her, she suddenly wants the same necklace she once despised. Han Li decides to go through with the purchase anyway, thinking this will be the last gift and the last time he acts like a simp. Yu Yun is excited that he is buying the necklace for her and even talks about showing it to the class president and Fei Fei. Sensing danger, he warns her not to do that. The necklace may not be expensive, but he doesn't want drama. The moment the transaction is completed, a system window pops up. He receives a pet collar as a consumer gift. Its effect increases obedience and happiness. Han Li thinks the gift is great if he were training a husky, but the inflated one calls to him and asks for help putting on the necklace. After some attempts, Han Li helps her wear it. She happily admires the necklace, but he suddenly senses something. Apparently, the class president and Fei Fei saw everything. Damn it, now he has a lot of explaining to do. At first, our protagonist worries, wondering how or if he can explain himself. But then he pauses and asks himself why he should even be worried. He was just helping Yun Yun put on her necklace. Now at ease, he thinks that if the class president misunderstood the situation and got jealous, that would definitely be something he could use. Leaving the store, he acts completely casual. The girl explains that they were just watching and didn't want to disturb the two of them. After that, it's finally time to head back to school. Han Li reflects that this will be the last class outing, but that isn't his problem. His real goal, becoming financially independent, is still his top priority. When he arrives at his dorm room, he learns that the class president has finally accepted his friend request. Ting Ting, on the other hand, notes that this is her first time chatting with one of her readers and is at a loss for what to do. Regardless, Han Lai starts the conversation by asking if she wants to write a new book or finish her unfinished project. She says she has no desire to continue her old work because lately she's been frustrated with her content. This makes Han Lai stop and think for a moment about how he can help her. After pondering, he gives her some light criticism. He points out that her writing style feels immature and her plot development is weak. Ting Ting finds his feedback spot on. Those were exactly the problems she was struggling with. She hopes that the online version of our protagonist can give her the solutions and guidance she needs to improve. Apparently, he finally got her attention. Han Li then gives her tips about character development, pacing, and more. In the end, he concludes that she lacks real-life experience. That's why she feels frustrated and why her writing comes off clumsy. She agrees, saying our protagonist is absolutely right. After some time, she becomes willing to do anything he asks of her, prompting our protagonist to show a corny smile. Sometime later, he suggests that they write a novel about a dominant CEO. He brings this up because he knows exactly the type of story she likes and the type she would love to write. After giving her a detailed yet brief plotline, Ting Ting turns completely red, wondering how he even knows her taste so well. The next day, Han Li enters the library, where he accidentally runs into the class president. He helps her reach a book and tries to start a conversation. But the poor girl is still clearly upset about the necklace incident and refuses to talk to him. Yet when she returns to her dorm, she immediately messages his online version. Han Li offers a collaboration and even sets up generous terms that benefit her. He promises to do most of the heavy lifting, and she won't earn any less commission. The offer is tempting, but Ting Ting decides she won't let him outshine her. Days pass, and Ting Ting realizes the female lead's name is suspiciously close to her own. Then Han Li gives her the first task: write an intense romantic scene. This makes her embarrassed, but she still completes it. The protagonist praises her, and from that point on, the two of them go back and forth, constantly chatting and improving their new book. The scene shifts to a restaurant where the protagonist is hanging out with his dorm mates. While he's on his phone, his attention is caught by someone approaching. Apparently, his dorm buddies invited some girls over. His friend leads them to their table and invites everyone to eat together. Just like that, they're all seated with food already ordered. His dorm mates introduce the girls. The first is his class president from the finance department, Du Du. The other is Pan Ji, the top beauty of her department and Du I Do's close friend. Meanwhile, Han Lai's buddy proudly introduces him as the king of the ladies. Seeing this circus, Han Lai decides to introduce himself properly. He gives his name and explains that he's from the humanities department. Pan, his friend, looks at him closely and feels he looks familiar. Then it finally hits her. She suddenly blurts out loudly, asking if he's the guy being actively chased by Yu Yun and Fei Fei, and the one both girls keep fighting to buy meals for at the cafeteria. Our protagonist immediately breaks into a sweat. Han Lai doesn't like this topic. It makes him sound like some kind of playboy. Sure enough, his dorm buddies think he's incredible. They want to learn some Riz techniques and pickup lines to hit on girls. However, Pang Yi chimes in, suggesting that they eat first, prompting one of Han Li's dorm mates to point out that Han Lai is the one paying. Amid the lively discussion, Han Li focuses on Pan Yi. He remembers that in his past life, he could only look at her from a distance, but here she is, sitting at the same table as him. Pan Ji also comes from a rich family, yet seeing how comfortable she is talking with common folks is somewhat interesting. Regardless, Pan Gi calls out to our protagonist and suggests a toast to friendship. Han accepts, prompting her to flash a bright smile, another one added to the harem. During the conversation, Han keeps staring at her. Eventually, Pan Gi notices. Our protagonist remarks about her eye color. Pan Ji responds, saying she inherited it from her mother, who is a foreigner. When she asks if it's unusual, Han Li responds with a thumbs up, adding that her unique eye color makes her beautiful. Both of them talk about their backgrounds and hometowns until one of his dorm buddies spots the class president. Ting Ting also notices our protagonist sitting there. Seeing this, Han Li greets her casually. Meanwhile, Tofu and Pan Ji are taken aback when they learn she is the class president of the Humanity Department. Danger alarms ring as the top beauty from the Humanity Department and the top beauty from the Finance Department stare at each other. Before Ting Ting shifts her attention back to our protagonist, she wonders why the fool is sitting with Pan Gi. She misunderstands, thinking he is shamelessly trying to live off her. With this in mind, she teasingly reveals that the girl Yu Yun is waiting, and particularly that Yu Yun is eating while waiting for him to respond to her text. This girl is dangerous. This makes our protagonist reflect and regret offending her. Still, he explains that he actually took his dorm buddies out for a meal and eventually ran into Pan Ji and her friend. The rest of the table can tell from his tone that he is attempting to chase the class president away. However, there is always that one slow friend in every group. One of Han's dorm mates doesn't get the hint and invites a waiter to set up a chair for Ting Ting. Indeed, one doesn't need enemies with friends like this. The protagonist just shoots his friend a look and thanks him. His clueless friend, not understanding anything, wonders if he did something wrong. Meanwhile, the class president is actually about to join them. But our protagonist thinks fast and stops her. He makes an excuse and suggests they hang out some other time. Of course, she gets the message and decides to leave, angrily, choosing not to bother him anymore. His bald roommate points out that he made her upset, and Han Li wonders whose fault it is that things ended up like this. Poor Ting Ting is on the verge of tears, wondering why he treated her that way. Our poor guy is being called the worst trash. Sensing Ting Ting's reaction, our protagonist excuses himself. He enters the restroom to talk to her online version, just as she vents about him. After reading her long message, Han Li realizes how angry she really is and decides to calm her down first. Han Li points out that her classmate is simply teasing her and insists she shouldn't fall for his tricks. She agrees and heads to another restaurant to get something to eat. Meanwhile, Han Li rejoins his dorm mates and Pan Ji. He drops his wallet on the table and insists one of his friends cover the bill. The bald one takes up the task, confidently saying he'll handle it. Then Han Li leaves the table, prompting everyone to wonder where he suddenly went. Meanwhile, Ting Ting is still at the restaurant. While the staff prepares her order, she chats with our protagonist. Surprisingly, she finds his online version easier to talk to. Once her food is ready, she moves to pay, but Han Li suddenly appears behind her. To her surprise, he already bought her fried rice and even offers to pay for this portion. While doing this, he reminds her of his promise to hang out. Both the class president and the restaurant staff are shocked when they hear him openly criticizing the store's food. Ting Ting is already pissed off because of the store incident, so she leaves while fuming. Han Li knows she's upset, but he didn't expect her to react this strongly. As he leaves the store, he gets a message. Apparently, Ting Ting went online to rant about him. Ever supportive, Han Lei even gives her credit for expressing her feelings. By doing this, he unexpectedly gains 200 experience points for reflecting on her character. While heading to meet his friends, Han Li thinks about how Ting Ting never wants people to bother or interfere in her personal space, yet she herself crosses that line easily. It turns out his actions are only meant to make her realize this flaw and help her fix it while it's still early. When he returns to his friend's table, they are surprised he actually bought food. The bald guy is about to say something stupid, but the one with glasses quickly stops him before he makes the protagonist angry. Later, Han Li returns to his dorm room. He remembers that in his past life, there will be a trading contest where the winner gets the chance to manage a live account with real funds. He plans to seize this opportunity to make a profit and push his financial skills even further. As for the relationship between Pan Gi and Ting Ting, it doesn't bother him right now. His priority remains the same as ever. The following day at school, Fei Fei sits beside our protagonist and asks about his weekend. She even invites him out, but Han Li refuses, explaining that his day is already packed. Thanks to the upcoming trading contest, he needs to organize his thoughts like always, and with his financial skill, it takes serious focus. On top of that, he still has to write a novel with Ting Ting. It's almost as if 24 hours a day isn't enough for this guy. Meanwhile, Fei Fei suddenly changes the topic to something interesting. Han Li is shocked after hearing it. Apparently, the whole incident involving him, Ting Ting and Pan Gi has been completely misunderstood. He clarifies everything, and Fei Fei is stunned after realizing what truly happened. During their conversation, Ting Ting and Yu Yun enter the classroom. Ting Ting walks to her seat and simply gives the protagonist a stare. They don't interact at all, so once class ends, Han Li offers to take Fei Fei out instead. The girl accepts excitedly and even walks over to Ting Ting and Yu Yun to invite them too, leaving our protagonist wondering what's going on. The scene switches to a restaurant. The girls are discussing the menu, trying to decide what to order. Meanwhile, Ting Ting is lost in thought, confused by Han Li's behavior in class. It's almost as if he doesn't care about the previous incident at all. Just then, a group of guys clearly from another school approaches and offers to cover their meal. Ting Ting turns the guy down instantly, faster than my crush rejecting me back in junior high school. Unfortunately, her rejection only encourages him. He keeps pushing and even asks what school they attend. Ting Ting once again shuts him down coldly. Sensing trouble, Yu Yun urges Fei Fei to call the protagonist. Fei Fei tries desperately to reach him. Seeing her glued to her phone, the guy finds her reaction interesting and asks for her contact. That's when the class president has had enough and labels his behavior as harassment. She threatens to call the police. But the guy sneers and asks how wanting a girl's contact is considered harassment. He even jokes that if treating a girl to a meal counts as harassment, then even her father isn't innocent. Then he grabs her by the hand. At that exact moment, our protagonist shows up. The girls finally see their lifeline arriving. The guy, clearly irritated, asks Han Li what his relationship is with the girl. Han Li, on the other hand, calmly observes the fool, before suddenly grabbing him by the arm and asking if he's lost his mind. Han Li adds pressure furiously, making it seem like he plans to break the fool's arm. Eventually, he lets the guy go and gives him a cold stare. However, the fool overestimates his luck and retaliates. But thanks to the system's enhancements, Han deals with him easily in one swift, simple motion. The entire restaurant is shocked by his display of strength. Sensing the tense atmosphere, he instructs the girl to leave with him, insisting they head to another restaurant so they won't be stared at. Outside, Yu Yun expresses relief at how he handled the troublemaker. Meanwhile, our protagonist checks on the class president. When she says she is fine, he feels reassured, which somehow annoys her, since he only asks casually without showing much real concern. Regardless, Han teases her, asking what she thinks about his move. He even jokes about whether he looked like one of those male protagonists from the novels she loves to read. This makes Ting Ting flustered, causing her to wonder how he even knows she reads novels and knows her preferences. Later that night, our protagonist returns to his dorm and unexpectedly gets a message from Ting Ting. Sure enough, she praises him for the restaurant incident. Han finds this interesting. Just a day ago she was cursing him, and now she finds him attractive. They continue chatting, but the stubborn girl insists she has no feelings for him and is only using him as reference material. Eventually, her roommates notice she's constantly on her phone. They speculate she might have an online boyfriend, but she denies it quickly, saying it's not what they think. The way she dodges the topic only makes them more curious and convinced. The next day in class, the professor gives a boring lecture, the kind that makes you wish you were anywhere else. Meanwhile, the class president stays on her phone the whole time. She's excited because her novel just got approved. It's not her first, but this one feels different. Suddenly, she's caught off guard when the teacher calls on someone. Thankfully, he's referring to our protagonist. He demands to know what Han Li is doing with his laptop. Han Li instantly realizes his mistake. In his past life, bringing a laptop to a professor's class is normal, but only during the later half of the semester. Thinking quickly, he explains that he is practicing trading on a demo account. The professor seems impressed and asks him a question. When Han Li gives a full explanation about account management and risk control, the professor becomes even more impressed and follows up with an even harder question. This divides the class. Some students think our protagonist is cooked, while the girls watch nervously and hope he can answer. Nonetheless, Han Li stays composed. After a brief moment of thought, he gives a detailed and comprehensive explanation about trading patterns, investment strategies, timing, the previously mentioned risk management, and position sizing. Of course, his explanation flies over everyone's head, including mine. Regardless, the professor applauds him. His answer is correct and very well spoken. Seeing that some classmates got lost even before he mentioned trading strategies, Han Li asks for permission to explain it one more time. Ting Ting assumes he just wants to show off. Surprisingly, the professor doesn't stop him but gives a warning. If he doesn't explain it well, he'll embarrass himself. Our protagonist confidently steps onto the podium. You see, the reason he chooses to explain is because teaching is a way of learning. He wants to be the kind of person who understands a topic so well that he can explain it to a 5-year-old. Sure enough, after his detailed explanation, the entire class becomes lively. Just like that, he proves to everyone that he is a genius. Unexpectedly, the news reaches Pan-gi. Her friend recounts how the professor was impressed, how our protagonist answered every question, and how much content he covered. Her tone shifts to admiration. Pan-gi can only watch and listen, completely speechless. The following day, Han Lee is self-studying in class when a girl suddenly approaches him with a question. Han Lee doesn't disappoint. He answers clearly and solves every problem she has. Meanwhile, the class president watches him quietly, lost in thought. It's obvious now why girls are actively chasing Han Lee. He isn't just handsome, his aura is completely different from an ordinary guy. Later, Ting Ting expresses her shock. Apparently all the girls, and even some guys, want to ask him questions now. While most girls ask for private tutoring sessions, many are simply curious about how he knows so much. Eventually, the class president joins in to ask a question. This is the first time, well, technically the second time, she willingly approaches him. Later, Ting Ting is fuming and venting to our protagonist online. She never imagined that after mustering the courage to approach him, she would get turned down. Even worse, he didn't show any reaction at all, because he was busy with the girls crowded around him. Feeling hopeless, Han Lee is at a loss. The way she describes everything makes it sound like he did something wrong, so he asks if they were cool before and why she's suddenly complaining. It turns out she was originally annoyed by just her 2 friends pestering him, but now it's half the girls in her class. Han Lee drops a bombshell, asking if she's annoyed because he's surrounded by girls, clearly hinting that she's jealous. She stubbornly denies liking him, so Han Lee offers a solution. He tells her to become someone so outstanding that her classmates won't be able to ignore her. Just thinking about it makes Ting Ting excited. During their conversation, she mentions a problem with her writing. She doesn't know how to write an intense, intimate scene where the male lead is supposed to dominate her character. Han Lee thinks her confusion is cute, but then realizes he's clueless too. Then he remembers something that might actually work. In the next scene, Han Lee follows Ting Ting and learns that someone has sent her a package. When he offers to help, she refuses outright and stops him from interfering. Eventually, she finds the package on her own. She considers the sender, our protagonist's online version, to be surprisingly thoughtful, especially since he uses the names of the male and female leads from their novel. When Han Lee casually asks about the package, Ting Ting tells him it is none of his business. Unbeknownst to her, Han Lee is the one who actually sent it. On the way back, they share small talk, and Han Lee uses the moment to explain his dreams. Ting Ting is taken aback when she hears how ambitious he is and how rich he wants to become. Seeing her confusion, Han Lee asks if she has no big dreams of her own. It turns out she wants to learn more about trading, and Han Lee offers to teach her, but not for free. Their playful banter continues back and forth until Yu Yun suddenly appears, demanding to know what they are doing together. The class president answers with calm dismissal, saying they simply bumped into each other. Han Lee playfully agrees, which irritates Ting Ting a little. Yu Yun watches their interaction with growing confusion, wondering when they suddenly became so close. Trying to draw Han Lee's attention, she clings to his arm, but he smoothly pulls away and suggests they head to the cafeteria. Yu Yun becomes even more convinced something is going on since the class president decides to treat Han Lee to lunch. Later, at the cafeteria, Yu Yun makes another attempt to gain his attention by offering him a meatball. She silently complains that, until recently, Fei Fei was the only rival, but now Ting Ting joins in, and both might end up losing to her. Meanwhile, Han Lee easily sees through her intention and notes her mistake. She keeps trying to impress him instead of improving herself. During their meal, 2 familiar figures approach, Pan-gi and her friend, who greet the table casually before sitting in a far corner. The atmosphere turns painfully awkward, prompting Yu Yun to ask what is going on. Pan-gi's friend finally breaks the silence by asking about Fei Fei. Han Lee replies that it is still early, so she is most likely in her dorm. Pan-gi joins the discussion, insisting that Fei Fei is unlikely to still be in her dorm. After hearing her explanation, Han Lee agrees. Meanwhile, the class president grows annoyed that he is giving Pan-gi attention, especially when she is the one treating him. Ting Ting hands him an orange, reminding him he should listen to the person treating him. Pan Gi raises an eyebrow at this gesture. It feels like a subtle declaration that Han Li belongs to Ting Ting. Surprisingly, Han Li agrees with Ting Ting, prompting Yu Yun to call him indecisive since she had tried to invite him earlier. Han Li argues that he is not indecisive at all. If she treats him, he will listen to her in return. This shameless logic earns him a thumbs up from Pan Ji's friend, who praises him for being both shameless and self-righteous at the same time. Han Li takes this as an invitation to be even more shameless and asks if she wants to treat him as well. She immediately refuses, claiming she doesn't have the allowance to support him. Instead, she points to Pan Gi, reminding everyone that Pan Gi is rich and her monthly allowance could cover the entire cafeteria's menu. Pan Gi wonders why she is suddenly being dragged into this. Han Li adds that with her background, he would prefer being treated at a 5-star restaurant. Pan Gi plays along, saying she doesn't want any surprises, like him suddenly pulling out a ring during their meal. This confuses her friend. The protagonist decides to push the joke even further, lightly entertaining the idea of marriage. Yu Yun begins to panic as she pieces everything together. It was already troublesome dealing with Ting Ting, but now Pan Gi is joining the fray. Worse, Pan Gi is wealthy and beautiful. Acting quickly, Yu Yun decides to change the topic. She turns to Ting Ting's package, suddenly showing interest in what is inside. Even Ting Ting now sees what this inflated troublemaker is attempting. Annoyed, she snatches the package away and demands to know what nonsense Yu Yun is talking about. Surprisingly, Han Li joins in, suggesting the package might be from an admirer. Ting Ting rejects the idea, insisting it is nothing like that. Pan Gi's friend chimes in, reminding everyone how many guys have confessed to Ting Ting before. Still, Ting Ting insists the package isn't from an admirer and claims it is just a gift from a friend. She starts suggesting they finish their meal and head to class. But to her shock, Yu Yun has already opened the package and found a wrapped gift inside. With pig-headed friends like this, who needs enemies? Now Ting Ting can only hope the package contains nothing embarrassing. Worse, if she tries to stop Yu Yun from revealing it, the situation may become even more suspicious. Suddenly, the package slips and falls to the ground. Ting Ting freezes in momentary shock. The gift turns out to be the dog collar the protagonist receives as a reward from the system. The class president stands frozen, unable to comprehend how the situation has escalated into this. Noticing her reaction, Yu Yun casually tosses the collar to Ting Ting, insisting it belongs to her. Ting Ting refuses to accept it, and their back and forth quickly draws the attention of Pan Gi's friend. The girl pauses in shock, and even Pan Gi is stunned, wondering why the two of them are holding a dog collar. A sudden thought crosses her mind, making her question whether they are actually involved in that kind of relationship. Now Pan Gi's friend is amazed as well. She concludes that the two of them truly know how to enjoy themselves. Pan Gi's reaction leaves Ting Ting scrambling to explain, but every word she utters only makes the situation worse. Turning to Yu Yun, the class president hopes she can join her and prove that it is all a misunderstanding. But to her shock, she acts as if she is seeing Ting Ting for the first time and expresses deep respect for Ting Ting's preferences, adding that she personally likes only men. Ting Ting is speechless, unable to understand what any of this has to do with liking men. Pan Gi takes the remark as a sign to leave, showing her own respect for Ting Ting's supposed preferences as long as no one gets hurt. Worse still, she even encourages Ting Ting to continue being herself. Poor Ting Ting is left wondering how everything went so terribly wrong. Han Li, watching from the side, can no longer hold back. He bursts into laughter, instantly making Ting Ting furious. The poor girl tries to stop him while desperately insisting that it is all a misunderstanding. But now Pan Gi has laughed at her, and the protagonist has gained new material to tease her with. Overwhelmed, Ting Ting finally begins to cry. Yu Yun steps forward in concern and tries to calm her down, though inwardly she feels relieved. Ting Ting's supposed hobby being exposed means Han Li will surely lose interest in her. However, when Yu Yun turns to the protagonist to ask him to comfort the crying Ting Ting, she notices something off about his expression. The protagonist is clearly enjoying this moment of payback. Unfortunately for Ting Ting, this is only the beginning. Han Li urges her to stop crying, calling the entire mess a minor issue. He decides to buy ice cream to cheer her up and asks Yu Yun to watch her for a moment. As he leaves, Yu Yun sinks into deep thought. She cannot understand why the protagonist is helping. She knows he dislikes Ting Ting's behavior at times, yet he has never said or shown that he truly hates her. By nature, Ting Ting has a picky and slightly domineering attitude. Her arrogant personality makes it nearly impossible for people to stay around her. This stands in contrast to our protagonist, who remains indifferent to her temperament. Yu Yun reflects quietly and concludes that our protagonist has been using both her and Fei Fei as tools to break Ting Ting's pride. Her deductions make it clear that he has been after Ting Ting all along, yet she still refuses to accept it. Meanwhile, the protagonist receives a reward from the system after getting the ice cream. The reward is a candy said to increase obedience and possibly make a target agree to his request. The probability of success depends on the difficulty of the request. Han Li returns and suggests that Yu Yun head back to class first. Understanding his intention, Yu Yun leaves, promising to reserve seats for both of them. Once Yu Yun is gone, Ting Ting tells him to leave her alone. This prompts Han Li to offer her the ice cream. He also points out that she only says things like this when Yu Yun is not present. Still, Ting Ting remains stubborn. Han Li decides to tempt her. He offers to teach her a way to resolve the misunderstanding if she accepts the ice cream. Hearing this, Ting Ting asks if there truly is a way to fix everything. Seeing her make such a cute expression while asking him to promise instantly makes him accept. He cannot help thinking how someone can look so adorable while crying. Yet he reminds himself that this same girl used him in his past life. After she finishes the ice cream, Ting Ting waits hopefully for him to explain how to clear the misunderstanding. Han Li immediately tells her to confess publicly. She agrees at first, only to realize she misheard. Han Li clarifies that she must confess her special hobby publicly. This pushes her to bite his arm in frustration. Han Li feels wronged and wonders why she bites him. Ting Ting vents angrily, calling him unreliable and questioning why she ever expects anything good from him. Eventually, Han Li explains his full plan to resolve the misunderstanding. Ting Ting becomes furious when she realizes the solution essentially requires revealing her supposed special hobby to everyone, simply to seize control of the situation. Han Li explains further. If she announces it herself, people will not have the chance to spread it behind her back. After a long argument, she finally agrees reluctantly. Seeing her softened resistance, Han Li seizes the chance to pat her lightly on the head and offers her a heartfelt piece of advice. Then, sensing the timing is right, he gives her the system candy. Ting Ting accepts it eagerly, seeing it as a rare opportunity to obtain something from a stingy guy like him. She eats it without hesitation. Han Li feels satisfied that his goal has been achieved. To test the candy's effect, he flirts by suggesting he and the class president should have a private learning session, though it has nothing to do with actual studying. Ting Ting immediately turns red, wondering why he suddenly shifts to such a topic. Her mind drifts, imagining whether such experience would help her properly draft the intense romance scene she has been struggling with. For a moment, she even considers it, but she quickly snaps back to her senses and pushes the protagonist away. She yells in frustration, demanding to know if Han Li is trying to tease her again. Fuming, she storms off toward the classroom. Han Li watches her departing figure, noting that her refusal is within his expectations. Given Ting Ting's personality, agreeing to something like that is nearly impossible for now. The protagonist eventually returns to his dorm, busying himself with evaluating potential trading opportunities. His thoughts are interrupted by his bespectacled dorm mate, who rushes in with news. Apparently, something major happened during class. Han Li asks for details, regretting that of all days, he chose to skip class today. His dorm mate reveals that the class president is a lesbian. The protagonist finds the claim absurd and wonders who is spreading such rumors. That is when his dorm mate adds that she confessed it herself. Han Li freezes, left wondering what exactly is happening. Han Li can hardly believe what he is hearing, so his roommate explains how everything went down. Ting Ting suddenly appears in his class, walks straight up to Pan Gi, and confesses to her. Although he does not clearly hear what she says, it is enough to make her blush. As if that is not shocking enough, Ting Ting even pats Pan Gi on the butt. Sure enough, the other roommate confirms the story without hesitation. Han Li falls into deep thought. Although he is the one who instigates Ting Ting, the girl proves to be incredibly decisive in her actions. By doing this, she successfully drags Pan Gi into her mess. After exchanging a few words, his roommates decide to leave for lunch. Later at school, Fei Fei runs toward Han Li with news. He initially assumes she wants to report on Ting Ting and Pan Ji, since such gossip is nothing new, yet he cannot help noticing her excitement. She vividly describes the scene as something extremely romantic, as if it comes straight out of a novel. Han Li wonders whether Fei Fei is close to Ting Ting when she suddenly grabs his hand, reenacting how the class president and Pan Ji react. He is left stunned, confused by this sudden boldness from a girl who usually acts shy. Several classmates watch their interaction and begin wondering when the two suddenly become so close. Fei Fei immediately pushes Han Li aside and claims it is all a misunderstanding. Han Li is momentarily taken aback as Fei Fei starts introducing him as her male best friend. At the same time, the atmosphere in class turns chaotic, as the class president and her friend appear to be going through a rough patch. A headache forms as Han Li wonders what he can possibly do at the moment. That is when he remembers his writer account and decides to chat with the class president. Rushing to the library, he enters the class president's chat, only to discover that she is on a full venting streak. This prompts Han Li to reflect, noting that an enraged woman is truly terrifying. At some point in the conversation, Ting Ting refers to him as her male god, making him question whether this is the effect of the system candy. It seems he has managed to escape trouble for now. However, he stumbles upon an interesting discovery. Apparently, Yu Yun is using both the cafeteria incident and Pan Gi to capitalize on the situation and gain his attention. Unfortunately for Yu Yun, Han Li has no interest in gold diggers. With the way things are developing, there is also a chance that Pan Gi will become even more involved. Later, Han Li returns to class. Yu Yun immediately signals for him to come sit with her. However, the moment he passes the class president, she surprisingly takes the initiative to invite him to sit with her instead. Han Li finds himself in a tight spot, though the choice before him is obvious. He walks up to the class president and asks what she wants. Ting Ting feels both relieved and reassured, realizing that he has not fallen for the vixen Yu Yun. Once seated, she begins updating him on everything that has developed. Our protagonist is surprised when Lu Hing's name comes up. Apparently, the man is attempting to remove her from the class president position due to the ongoing rumors surrounding her. According to her, he is not only trying to seize the class president's seat by using the recent incident as leverage. The protagonist dismisses it as nonsense, noting that people like Lu Hing are always good at showing off. Still, she understands that she must find a way to deal with him. Han Li offers her a piece of advice. He suggests buying a pack of cigarettes for the man. The girl is stunned, questioning how she could possibly buy something so expensive for such a trivial matter. This prompts him to ask whether she has a better idea, or if she prefers being constantly watched by the man. Surprisingly, she chooses to trust him and follow his suggestion. This decision catches him off guard, making him wonder if this is yet another effect of the system candy. After finishing their discussion, the protagonist shifts his attention back to his book. Ting Ting clearly dislikes the sudden change and immediately brings up Pan Ji, complaining about how poorly they get along. After listening to her explanation, the boy casually offers advice as though he is a relationship expert. This directly triggers the system, granting him a new skill called instigation. The protagonist stares at the skill in confusion, wondering who he has even instigated. He quickly labels it a useless ability and decides there is no need to level it up. Later that night in his dorm room, the skill unexpectedly levels up to level 2. He stares at it in disbelief, still unable to figure out who he has instigated. At the same time, he receives a message from the class president's online persona. They discuss the success of their book, during which the protagonist unintentionally explains how to pursue him in real life. At that very moment, he gains experience points for instigating her. The class president stares at the message in shock, clearly influenced by the effects of the system candy. She reminds him of their current situation, as well as the rumors claiming she only likes girls, making it problematic for her to openly pursue him. In response, the protagonist suggests inviting him out for the weekend to clear up the misunderstanding. After thinking it over, she decides to give it a try, as the idea sounds surprisingly reasonable. The next day, our protagonist is in the middle of a workout when someone approaches him. He greets the class president in surprise, confused as to why she is so well dressed. He jokingly asks if she is going on a date with Pan Ji. She quickly clarifies that she came to invite him to visit a new escape room. Puzzled, he wonders why she didn't ask one of her friends to accompany her instead. However, due to their current friend dynamic, that isn't possible. He agrees to go with her, But it won't be for free. Since she has been receiving tutoring from our protagonist, she reluctantly agrees to his condition. Making up his mind, the protagonist decides to go change first before accompanying her. On the way to the escape room, the atmosphere becomes painfully awkward. Wanting to lighten things up, he speaks first, demanding to know the class president's true intention for inviting him. At a loss for words, she doesn't know how to respond. For a moment, she wonders if she should confess her feelings directly, but quickly dismisses the idea. She doesn't know if she likes him that much. Seeing her lost in thought, the protagonist assumes she is having trouble with her relationship with Pan-gi. Sure enough, he happily offers to give her advice, claiming to be a relationship expert. The class president angrily rebukes him, insisting that she only invited him because he was the only one available. Pretending to be scared, our protagonist tells her not to resort to violence. He then asks if they have arrived at their destination yet. Soon after, both of them decide to head inside. Inside the escape room, the class president is completely terrified. She recalls the protagonist's advice about something called the suspension bridge effect, a phenomenon where fear causes people to grow closer by acting scared and leaning on him. The rest should naturally follow. However, she is far too frightened and ends up doing the complete opposite. In the midst of their banter, the lights suddenly go out, plunging the room into complete darkness. Grabbing onto someone nearby, she feels relieved when she realizes it is him at first. But when she turns on the flashlight, she is met instead with a ghost holding a chainsaw. Later, in a cafe, the class president comments that the escape room experience was terrifying, making our protagonist wonder why she decided to go in the first place. This only leads her to complain that the room's characters were far too scary and realistic, before she switches the topic back to their previous discussion about stock trading. That's when Han Lai mentions that their professor once brought up a trading competition. Ting Ting looks surprised, clearly having never heard about it. This causes our protagonist to remind her that she wanted to surpass others and already believed she would know about such information. In addition, he is aware of the current situation between her and Pan-gi. He doesn't even give her a chance to explain herself, despite being the one who encouraged her in the first place. The protagonist proves himself to be a clear manipulator, remarking that he doesn't want to get involved in her scandals. With that, he takes his leave, telling her to enjoy the meal. Ting Ting tries to stop him at first. She thinks to herself that he clearly misunderstood the situation and that she never intended to use him as a shield. She adds that it isn't his fault for misunderstanding. Anyone in his position would be afraid of getting involved and having their reputation ruined. Still, the fact that Han Li doesn't even give her a chance to explain annoys her, so she decides to take a different approach. Meanwhile, Pan-gi is busy when her phone suddenly rings with a notification. Checking it, she discovers it's from Ting Ting. A series of messages irritates her, as she knows she's stuck in this mess because of her. So she comes up with a way to get back at her. That's when she decides to message our protagonist. The guy is surprised by how she even got his contact. Pan-gi explains that she got it from a friend in the same department. She then invites him out on a date to a fancy Japanese restaurant. Apparently, this is her plan to get back at Ting Ting by using our protagonist. But to her shock, Han Li rejects her outright. He gives a reasonable explanation for why he won't be available that day. Meanwhile, Pan-gi just stares at her phone with a blank expression, realizing she's been rejected. If it were anyone else, they would have already agreed, and this only makes her interest in him grow. Still, she doesn't force it and decides to reschedule for another time. But knowing Han Lai mentioned that he went to an escape room with a friend, and at the same time she received a message from Ting Ting about someone leaving her midway, the entire situation seems suspicious. She starts thinking that Ting Ting also had a plan to use Han Li to divert attention. She finds the whole thing very intriguing. Meanwhile, Han Li feels a chill run down his spine, certain that someone is definitely harboring bad intentions toward him. Later, in his dorm room, Han Li receives his first payment from the novel he wrote with the class president. Lost in thought, he considers that although their novel is a modern romance with high readership and decent pay, it still can't compare to TV dramas and series. Turning to his system, he sees that his trading skill is at level 3, which is acceptable for now. What's more important is his writing skill. With him and the class president collaborating, upgrading that skill seems like the better choice. By doing so, the novel's quality will definitely improve. After the upgrade succeeds, his phone rings. Checking it, he discovers a message from Pan-gi. Later, in a fancy restaurant, Pan-gi places several orders, including stir-fried crabs and mitten crabs. When she asks if Han Lai wants anything specific, he politely declines, saying he has no particular preference, but adds that the order seems a bit excessive. Pan-gi defensively explains that he finally accepted hanging out with her, which is why she ordered so much. Han Li has no choice but to agree. He thinks to himself that the reason he kept rejecting her was to avoid getting involved in scandals, but constantly rejecting her might also affect their future friendship. Pan-gi, unaware of his thoughts, asks if his earlier rejection was due to extra courses or the trading competition. Han Li admits it was because of the competition. Pan-gi thinks about how tough that must be for him and suggests changing the subject. Right on cue, the waiter brings the first dish. Han Lai playfully thanks her for the treat. She tells him not to flatter her, adding that she thought he might criticize the place. Han Lai responds modestly, saying he doesn't have the right since he's being treated. He continues praising and complimenting her looks, which only makes her more intrigued. She begins to understand why girls enjoy being around him. He's a smooth talker. Caught off guard by the comment, Han Li realizes that Pan-gi is completely different from the other girls. From her expressions to the way she converses, even with his high-level psychology skill, he can't fully understand her yet. Still, he believes that given enough time, he eventually will. Just then, the waiter arrives with the crabs. Our protagonist is ready to dig in, literally, but freezes when Pan-gi stops him mid-action. She takes a photo of the food, claiming it's for Instagram. Han Li wonders if this is just how rich kids behave, but then a chilling thought crosses his mind. Something bad is about to happen. Sure enough, she sets her phone down and suggests he like her post. To his horror, she doesn't just tag him. She includes him in the photo. Han Li realizes he's completely screwed. It's obvious now why she took the photo in the first place, especially since she never posts food pictures on her timeline. However, his troubles are only just beginning when someone suddenly calls out to little Nana and our protagonist. Pan-gi is stunned to hear her father's voice, leaving our protagonist completely puzzled. Ignoring the shock, her father asks what she is doing at the restaurant with her friends. Her dad, along with two uncles, expresses their desire to eat some crabs. Pan-gi's dad also casually mentions drinking and hopes she won't tell her mom. She nods happily and promises not to say a word, prompting her dad to turn to his friends and boast about how cute and understanding his baby girl is. His gaze then lands on our protagonist. Pan-gi's dad suddenly wonders why she hasn't introduced him yet. Han Li quickly seizes the opportunity to make a good impression. He introduces himself and adds that he attends the same university as Pan-gi. Pan-gi's dad immediately starts doing quick mental calculations. This is the first time he has ever seen his daughter out with a guy, so he assumes they are on a date. Meanwhile, our protagonist simply listens as Pan-gi's dad chats away, silently wondering what the man is even thinking. Even Pan-gi becomes confused when her dad suddenly starts commenting on Han Lai's firm grip, asking if he works out regularly. Han Li remains silent as the man continues talking non-stop. The two uncles study Han Li and give their honest opinions. One comments on the importance of working out, while the other thinks the remark is directed at him. Before things can spiral out of control, Pan-gi pushes her dad away and suggests that he and his friends head to their private room, promising they won't disturb them. Her dad leaves happily, letting the two youngsters enjoy themselves, and even promises to cover their bill. He gives Han Li a thumbs up, as if granting permission. Meanwhile, Han Li just stands there, looking like a fool who has completely lost control of the conversation. Watching them leave, he wonders aloud whether it's still a good idea to continue eating. Pan-gi, looking a little embarrassed, asks if running away might be a better option, silently thinking that her dad was way too enthusiastic. Curious, Han Li asks what kind of business her dad and the uncles are involved in. However, Pan-gi becomes furious when he bluntly refers to her dad as his dad, forcing him to quickly explain that it was a mistake. He then gently teases her, causing Pan-gi to stare at him with mild annoyance. She finally reveals that her dad actually works at the university. Han Li listens with interest and suddenly understands why she is studying in the humanities department. When he asks why she doesn't transfer to another university or change her major, Pan-gi tells him it doesn't matter what she studies or which school she attends. That's when he realizes this is a family issue. His thoughts drift as he reflects that, in modern times, parental authority like this feels outdated. Children are treated differently now, but in Pan Gi's case, her parents simply want her to get married, enjoy her life, and perhaps have a husband who can help with family affairs. He finds this wasteful, considering how capable and intelligent she is. Suddenly, their conversation is interrupted by someone calling Pan Gi's name. Han Li turns around and finds that the voice belongs to the class president. Our protagonist is momentarily speechless as he watches the two women act unusually affectionate. It becomes obvious that Ting Ting must have discovered the Instagram post, which explains why she came. And damn, she's really selling the act. Now Han Li understands why Pan Gi's dad was so enthusiastic earlier. Since the man works at the university, how could he not be aware of the rumors surrounding his own daughter? In other words, he's clearly trying to use Han Li to fix Pan Gi's situation. Right on cue, a waiter arrives and reports that Pan Gi's dad is calling for Han Li. Both girls are surprised, and Pan Gi struggles to understand why her dad wants to see him. Inside the private room, Pan Gi's dad and the uncles discuss our protagonist, praising him as a capable young man. As Han Li approaches, he unintentionally overhears their conversation. As expected, Pan Gi's dad is genuinely worried about his daughter liking only girls. He worries about the family business being entrusted entirely to her. While she's smart, the poor man just wants his girl to enjoy her life. Han Li stands there quietly, taking everything in. He deduces that it's highly likely Pan Gi's dad is looking for a good son-in-law. Regardless of the man's intentions, Han Li sees this as a golden opportunity, one he absolutely must seize. That's when an idea strikes him, and he asks the waiter for something. When he enters the room, he apologizes for disturbing them while holding a bottle of wine. Pan Gi's dad notices the bottle, so Han Li explains that he couldn't possibly visit her father and uncles empty-handed. Since Pan Gi's dad paid for his meal, this is his way of expressing gratitude. Following proper etiquette, he pours the wine and offers to pour for Pan Gi's dad first, since he is the junior. Pan Gi's dad accepts and praises him for being thoughtful. The man is clearly impressed by their brief interaction and believes our protagonist comes from a respectable family. Curious, he asks about Han Li's background, wondering if he's a local due to his different accent. Han Li explains that he comes from the City of Dreams and only moved to the capital for his studies. He adds that he doesn't go out much since he's still unfamiliar with the surroundings. Pan Gi's dad rubs his chin thoughtfully before casually suggesting that Han Li spend more time accompanying his daughter. He even offers to cover the expenses, which makes Han Li slightly anxious. Han Li responds that he usually focuses on his studies and believes it's better for Pan Gi to be accompanied by a girl. Speaking of which, he informs Pan Gi's dad that a female classmate has just arrived and is currently talking with his daughter. Yes, our protagonist just snitched. The poor uncle begins to sweat, fully aware that the person being referred to is the class president. Han Li, acting completely clueless, calmly confirms it. Father Pan remains composed and suggests that Han Li return to his meal. The moment Han Li waves goodbye to him and the uncles, Pan Gi's father's expression instantly freezes before he nearly explodes. He wants to go down and see what is happening for himself, but his friends quickly stop him. When Pan Gi's father turns on them in anger, they explain that going down would be a terrible idea. Fearing that his actions might scare the children, Pan Gi's father can only grit his teeth and listen to reason. Meanwhile, Han Li returns to the table where the class president and Pan Gi are seated. Seeing him come back, Pan Gi asks curiously what her father wanted. Han Li explains that it was nothing serious and adds that her father only asked him to take good care of her. Pan Gi is still processing this when the class president suddenly launches into a dramatic performance. She retorts that Pan Gi does not need a man to take care of her as long as she is around. She points a finger at Han Li, accusing him of taking advantage of Pan Gi. The protagonist calmly explains that Pan Gi was the one who invited him in the first place and then asks why the class president came to the restaurant. She replies indifferently that she came to eat. With that, she starts ordering crabs while the protagonist knows she is only doing this to keep an eye on both him and Pan Gi. Fed up, Pan Gi insists that the class president drop the act and reminds her that she will be paying for her own food. Ting Ting sees no issue with this, considering she has just received her allowance. Turning back to Han Li, Ting Ting accuses him once again of trying to take advantage of Pan Gi. At this point, Han Li feels completely helpless. Annoyed by Ting Ting's antics, Pan Gi steps in to defend the protagonist. The two girls soon fall into a heated argument, leaving the protagonist to watch in silence. He has no intention of getting involved, so he simply wishes both of them happiness in their relationship. The remark leaves both girls speechless. Everything seems to work out perfectly, and the protagonist briefly thinks he is a genius until his eyes suddenly catch sight of someone nearby. Unaware that Panji's father is close, Ting Ting acknowledges that the protagonist knows his place and promises to treat Panji better. The poor man can only stand there, listening to the class president talk about dating his daughter. Seeing him on the verge of collapse, Han Lai can only hope the man does not suffer from high blood pressure. Desperately trying to change the topic, Han Lai gestures toward the girls to divert their attention. Pan Ji, however, fails to understand his intentions and demands to know what kind of game he is playing. Hearing his daughter talk about her relationship with Han Li, Pan Ji's father feels a slight sense of relief, noting that she still shows interest in men. Yet when she mentions killing two birds with one stone, doubt creeps in. The thought that his daughter might be bisexual sends his mind spiraling, though he is overthinking. On the other hand, Ting Ting laughs politely at the remark and suggests that the class president stops joking, though inwardly she already understands the true meaning behind it. The class president suddenly turns to Panji and acts affectionately, promising that she does not need a man because she can take good care of her and satisfy her. At that moment, Panji's father hears enough. Not only does his daughter like girls, but she is also the submissive one. His soul practically leaves his body as he wonders where he went wrong in raising her. Still, he manages to steady himself, believing there is still hope. Han Lai notices Panji's father approaching, and starts thinking of ways to help the man grow closer to his daughter. The girls continue arguing, completely unaware of what is about to happen. Soon, Panji's father arrives at their table. He puts on a bright smile as if nothing is wrong, though the girls immediately grow anxious. Ignoring the tension, he turns his attention to the class president and expresses surprise at seeing her. He begins asking direct and specific questions about her family and background. Han Li clearly understands what is happening, though he suspects the girls will not notice anything unusual despite Panji's father's strange behavior. Without warning, Panji's father turns to the protagonist and speaks about his daughter being reserved and having few friends. He praises both Han Lai and the class president as good kids and openly invites Han Lai to visit them again in the future. Panji senses that something is off, as her father is usually strict with boys. She cannot understand why he is being so kind to the protagonist and begins to wonder what kind of magic he used to win her father over. With that thought, she decides to make it her mission to uncover what makes him so special. Later, Han Li finally returns to his dorm room and is surprised to find his two roommates inside. Noticing their strange expressions, he asks what is on their minds. The bald one steps forward and reveals that they have been waiting for him. He then mentions that someone from their class, Dan Zihao, has suddenly been asking about him. When Han Li presses for a reason, the bald roommate admits he has no idea. The name sounds familiar, and Han Li falls into thought before finally realizing who the person is. Dan Zihao turns out to be the third richest student in the university, and also the #1 admirer of Pan Ge. Han Li thanks his roommates for the update. However, the one wearing shades admits he does not know why Dan Zihao is showing interest in Han Li, though he suspects it is related to Pan Ge. Han Li agrees with the assessment, but makes it clear he has no intention of making a move unless the man provokes him directly. Hearing this, the bald roommate remarks that Dan Zihao is rather terrifying due to the number of followers he has. In truth, he is not worried about Dan Zihao at all. What truly concerns him is how many bags would be needed to collect Dan Zihao and his men. Once the protagonist is finished with them, the mere thought terrifies him. Meanwhile, the protagonist has no idea what is going on in the bald man's head. With that, the two prepare to head out. Han Li unexpectedly invites them to stay over, but the moment he casually mentions his hammer, both men break into a cold sweat. Without another word, they decide to leave the room immediately. Han Li returns to his laptop and begins chatting online with the class president. She is excited after receiving a huge sum of money from him. Han Li knows the payment is indeed high, but what excites him more is the experience points gained from sending her the money. This makes him dream of becoming an entrepreneur in the future, and the thought alone feels like pure bliss. Returning to the chat, he is surprised to see the class president taking the initiative to make even more money. It turns out she is doing this to compete with Panji for the protagonist's attention. She fears that no matter how hard she works, She may never be able to match Pan Ji's monthly allowance. In reality, Ting Ting's current income already surpasses that of the average worker in the city. The protagonist concludes that if she cannot compete with money, there is another way. He suggests that she present herself more beautifully, as that would surely capture Han Li's attention. This shameless bastard is clearly looking forward to it. Left with no choice, the class president decides to give it a try. The next day arrives and nearly the entire campus is unable to look away from a single person. The class president enters the classroom, radiating charm. The whole class immediately notices how different she seems today, and Han Li notices as well. She acts cute and greets him with a warm good morning. The idiot suddenly lets out a laugh, leaving her completely stunned. Composing himself, he comments that she seems to be in a better mood today. The person she dressed up for barely reacts, which annoys her slightly, especially considering the effort she put into her makeup alone. Han Li notices her expression and pretends as if he did not say anything wrong. Soon after, the professor enters the classroom and announces the upcoming trading competition. He explains the details, stating that the competition will consist of 3 rounds. In the final round, the winner will walk away with a reward of 1 million yuan. The entire class erupts in shock. Meanwhile, the protagonist remains calm and begins planning his next steps for the competition. The professor encourages students to participate, emphasizing that simply taking part is a valuable way to gain real-life experience. He concludes by stating that any student interested in participating should approach him to register and sign up. Upon hearing that credits will be awarded to the best performing students, Han Li asks whether the class president wishes to enroll. Naturally, she agrees, seeing it as a great opportunity to make money. Noticing his expression, Ting Ting questions him, asking if he doubts her ability. At that moment, the inflated one walks over and suggests registering alongside the protagonist. The class president clearly dislikes this, but the protagonist recalls his past life. He reveals that this is the exact time when the class president becomes a legend, ironically because of her continuous losing streak. When the bell rings, several students begin bragging about their trading skills. Yu Yun rushes over to Han Li, asking for guidance on setting up a trade. Surprisingly, Fei Fei also joins in, confidently claiming that the competition will be a breeze for the protagonist. Naturally, Duan Xiao watches the scene with jealousy. Suddenly, Ting Ting speaks up and draws everyone's attention. Han Li wonders what she is trying to do, unaware that she only wants to stop the other girls from getting close to him. Out of nowhere, Han Li proposes a bet. Ting Ting is naturally confused, so Han Li explains that the bet is about the trading competition. He wants to see who can achieve the highest return on their investment. At first, the class president wants to refuse. She knows she might be at a disadvantage since Han Li is a known genius. However, after pressure from her classmates, she finally agrees. The condition is that Han Li must give her at least a 20% advantage. She believes there is no way she can lose with such a condition. Han Li happily accepts, remembering how disastrous her trades were in his previous life. With both sides agreeing, Ting Ting says that since she has the initial advantage, Han Li should decide the stakes. Confidently, Han Li states that if she wins, she can ask him for anything. If she loses, she must promise to forgive him unconditionally in the future. She is confused at first and asks why he would suggest such a stake. Han Li reveals that he plans to date someone in the future. The class president dislikes both his comment and the condition. She then proposes her own idea. If she wins, he is forbidden from dating anyone for the rest of the school year, which lasts 4 years. Han Li is stunned at first, but agrees anyway. Yu Yun feels that the class president is going too far, while some classmates see this as a perfect opportunity to watch drama unfold. Deep down, the class president believes she is doing this to stop him from finding a girlfriend and to keep him tied down. After class, Yu Yun approaches Han Li and suggests going out to eat. Han Li excuses himself from the group. On the way, Yu Yun keeps pestering him and suggests taking a walk together. The moment it is mentioned, Han Li declines. She then puts on a cute act, saying she finally understands and will stop pestering him. She adds that she is willing to wait. Han Li is left speechless. If he had not seen her true nature in his previous life, he would have definitely fallen for her. Not to mention, she is only acting this way because she believes he comes from a rich family. If she ever learns the truth, her attitude would surely change. Thinking this through, he tells her that promises mean nothing and that only time matters. Yu Yun is stunned for a moment. She becomes even more convinced that his heart must have been broken before. Now fully fired up, she believes she can make him hers with time. Han Li cannot understand what is going on in her mind. Later, the scene shifts to the classroom. It is the day of the competition. Han Li checks his laptop to see what is happening. He lands on a forum where classmates are discussing stocks and sharing tips on what positions to open. Most of it looks like complete nonsense to him. Just then, a tagged message from the class president appears. She asks if he plans to open his trade. Han Li wonders if she is secretly asking for help or simply pretending. Either way, he plays along and shares a screenshot of his trade. He is immediately met with doubtful comments about his setup. The group begins preaching like professional trading coaches. Han Li writes a long and detailed explanation, pointing out why his trade will work and why the class president's trade is likely to fail. After finishing, he feels satisfied while watching the group slowly shift to his side. The class president, however, believes he only knows how to talk. She refuses to believe her trade will not become profitable. The next day at school, Han Li approaches her and lightly teases her about her returns. She admits defeat but warns him not to get cocky, believing her trade will eventually recover. Han Li can only stare at her, speechless. Changing the topic, he openly invites her to lunch, but she immediately refuses. She is too focused on monitoring her trade. Seeing her serious expression, Han Li simply wishes her luck. At the cafeteria, he is busy on his phone when a familiar voice calls out to him. He is puzzled to find Pan Ji signaling him to come sit with her. Han Li senses that she is definitely up to something, but he joins her and her friend anyway. When asked what he plans to eat, he says he is not a picky eater and anything is fine. This remark irritates someone sitting with them. With a mischievous smirk, the guy looks surprised to see Han Li. Trying to stay polite, Han Li asks if the guy wants something, while also trying to figure out what kind of trouble Pan Ji is planning. The way she described Han Li made him sound remarkable, yet he sees nothing special. Annoyed, Pan Gi tells him to stop making rude comments. From this short exchange, Han Li can tell the guy is a bootlicker. What puzzles him is why he is getting involved in their mess. He quickly realizes this is Dan Zihao, the person his dorm mates warned him about. Dan Zihao questions why Han Li dared to keep Pan Ge waiting. This is related to the time Han Li ignored her before going out for crabs. On the surface, Pan Ge praises him as hardworking and impressive. Deep down, she is only trying to get back at him for ignoring her before and for not helping her deal with Ting Ting. On top of that, her father has been talking about him non-stop. Han Li pats her head and apologizes. Pan Ge clearly does not understand what is happening. Having seen through her intentions, Han Li plays along. If she wants to drag him into trouble with a bootlicker, then it will happen on his own terms. This leaves Pan Ge completely embarrassed. Dan Zihao and Pan Ge's friend can only watch in stunned silence. Her father had never touched her head before, yet the protagonist dared to pat it without hesitation. Pan Ge knew very well that she was the one who invited him. Acting so close to him in front of Dan Zihao was also her own idea. But now, she found herself unable to react. She had personally set the stage, yet the protagonist effortlessly flipped the narrative. To regain control of the situation and avoid becoming a joke, she used her trump card. She shot the protagonist an accusing stare, hoping he would apologize. Han Li did the exact opposite. The poor guy was completely confused and wondered why she was staring at him so intensely. Pan Ji was shocked. Her powerful technique had failed. She had used this method since childhood. No one had ever been able to maintain eye contact for long. Those who did would reflect on their actions and immediately apologize. This was the perfect proof that the protagonist was built differently. Nearby, the side character clenched his fists in annoyance. He roared, accusing the protagonist of daring to touch Pan Ge. Yet deep down, he hesitated. He knew Pan Ge hated being touched without permission, so he could not help but wonder what kind of relationship they shared. In response, Pan Ge casually adjusted her hair and lightly reprimanded him. She insisted that Han Li had not patted her head and told him not to mess up her hairstyle. Dan Zihao looked petrified on the spot. Han Li's next words snapped him out of his thoughts. He admitted that he had forgotten to properly introduce himself and mentioned that he was a close friend of his dorm mates. Han Li seemed to be observing Dan Zihao, trying to figure him out. Suddenly, Dan Zihao invited Han Li to hang out sometime in the future. Even as he looked down on him, Han Li accepted without hesitation. His calm expression scared Dan Zihao a little. Just then, Pange's friend arrived with a tray of food. Han Li happily thanked her and took the tray, leaving Dan Zihao furious at how quickly his expression changed. However, Pange's friend forgot to bring cutlery and turned back to get some. Han Li stopped her and simply used Pange's own set. Of course, Dan Zihao was jealous. The cutlery was custom-made and imported. Even he was not allowed to touch it. Yet Han Li used it so casually. Pange could only stare at him. Slightly irritated, she decided to let it go, thinking she could always get a new set later. Meanwhile, Dan Zihao pieced everything together and could not believe what he was seeing. Later, inside Pange's dorm room, she and her friend talked about the protagonist. Her friend claimed she could beat Han Li if he ever acted like that again, prompting Pange to tease her small frame. After the discussion, her friend remembered something important and rushed out. Left alone, Pange began reflecting on her life as someone born into a rich family. Being envied by everyone was normal. Sometimes it could even be a bad thing. Her father once told her that smart people kept their distance from those with a large status gap. Those with higher status did not need her flattery, while those below her would definitely need her help. Although her friend often teased her about this mindset, Pange knew her friend was always the first to run away when things became serious. It was not a problem, as she had long grown used to it. Soon, she began blaming the protagonist for everything, especially the incident at the cafeteria. She believed it would not take long before she got back at both of them. Just then, her friend rushed in with urgent news. She showed Pange her phone. The results of the trading competition rankings had been posted on the school website. Pange listened as her friend explained the rankings in great detail. After a long and overly detailed explanation, her friend summed it up by saying the protagonist was not just a genius, but something more. Pange admitted she did not fully understand everything. Still, from the overall conversation, it was clear her friend found Han Li incredibly impressive. Her friend agreed, though she looked puzzled. Pange brushed it off, saying it was nothing special. However, she thought that if the protagonist was as impressive as described, helping him might not be a bad idea. Elsewhere, in the protagonist's classroom, most students were discussing the trading competition. One student was being praised by his classmates, but he tried to act humble, saying his results were nowhere near as impressive as Han Li's. Just then, Fei Fei told the entire class to check the group forum. The rankings were now displayed. At the same time, Han Lei entered the classroom looking exhausted, only to find everyone staring at him. He was confused for a moment before a public announcement was made. Han Li had achieved 7th place nationwide. On behalf of the school administration, he was commended for this achievement. He stood there, slightly dazed. Before he could process everything, Yu Yun approached him. Han Li was momentarily surprised by her closeness as she expressed how amazing it was to place 7th nationwide. His classmates joined in, praising him as well. At this rate, the class president was sure to lose the bet. Feeling smug, Han Li thought the outcome was still uncertain and believed her investments might still turn profitable. However, the class president suddenly joined the conversation and revealed she had sold all her stocks that morning. The entire class froze. Han Li sensed something suspicious in her explanation. It soon became clear that she had copied his trades. Now he understood why she had asked so many questions the previous day. The following day, Ting Ting finished her run and greeted the protagonist. Han Li, however, kept his distance. The class president wondered why he was acting this way, but Han Li felt something was off. He asked whether she planned to copy his trades again. That was not the case. Instead, the class president began lecturing about the stock market and how times were constantly changing. She tried to justify her actions, hinting that copying trades was not necessarily a bad thing. By then, Han Li was already mentally checked out. Although he seemed to have his answer, an uneasy feeling lingered. Ting Ting could not understand the sudden change in his expression. Just then, her gaze landed on a group of students gathered around a poster. She walked over with the protagonist. The poster announced Han Li's 7th place ranking in the competition. Han Li was stunned, while the class president saw it as a good thing. However, the group of students sneered at the poster and spoke badly about him. Fed up, the class president shouted at them, questioning whether they even understood what it meant to place 7th in a nationwide assessment. Instead of backing down, their arrogance only grew, and they dismissed the entire achievement as ridiculous. The class president grows even more furious, but the group ignores her and continues to mock her. Ting Ting wonders why Han Lai stays quiet while she does all the talking. When Han Lai gestures toward her hand, he points out that she is holding him tightly. She does not notice it at first and never means to do it intentionally. The group watches their banter from the side. One student cannot help but comment on Han Li's reputation for chasing girls and asks whether he and the class president have something going on. The class president looks like she might explode at any moment. Han Li stops her and reminds her about disciplinary action, warning her not to let anger take control. This only makes Ting Ting more eager to beat some sense into the group, openly calling them Panjia's dogs. The group immediately senses what is about to happen. They quickly make excuses and leave, while Han Lai laughs. He does not expect the class president to act this way. She responds angrily, saying she is not foolish enough to get expelled for fighting because of him. She is also annoyed because the group is simply jealous of Han Li's success. Han Li feels impressed after hearing this. On purpose, he pats her on the head, making her turn red. She snaps at him and warns him never to try it again. Later that day, Pan Gi appears with one of the professors. She is apparently the one responsible for the posters, while the professor sweats nervously and explains that all the arrangements have already been completed. Out of curiosity, the professor decides to investigate Han Li's background. Panji's willingness to help him this much can only mean their relationship is not normal. However, Panji's thoughts reveal the real reason she dares to support Han Li. She does everything to place pressure on the protagonist by publicly announcing and hyping the competition. If Han Li fails, it will cause serious trouble for him. Meanwhile, Han Li sits in his room, completely unaware of what is happening. His two dorm mates enter while talking about him. When they see him, they quickly adjust their tone and invite him to join them. Han Li politely declines. While sitting down, the boys discuss how interesting the trading competition is. Such hype has never happened before, and even the seniors confirm it. The bald one believes the university must be offering a prize for the winner, but Han Li does not think so. During the conversation, the one wearing shades points out that the school is promoting the competition far too early. The results are not even finalized yet the school keeps hyping it up and creating a hostile environment for Han Li. Han Li does not expect the guy to be this sharp. After hearing the explanation, it starts to make sense why students from Pangi's department are so hostile toward him. With this in mind, Han Li tells the boy to keep an eye on things, and the guy reassures him with a promise. Han Li realizes that if he loses, things could quickly go south. At the same time, he cannot imagine himself losing. A skilled trader is never controlled by emotion. Staring at his computer, he sees that the market is now open. Radiating with confidence, he reflects on his second chance and swears to do his best this time. Han Li feels impressed when he checks the results, as they are far better than the previous day. He is about to look into something else when his phone suddenly buzzes. The scene fast forwards to the counselor's office, where Ting Ting is getting thoroughly scolded over the incident involving Pangi's classmates. The counselor once again threatens to strip her of her position as class president. Ting Ting finds the entire situation annoying. If it were not for the academic credits, she would never have considered becoming class president in the first place. At the same time, someone enters the office and greets the counselor. It is Han Lai, and Ting Ting cannot help but notice how the man's attitude completely flips the moment he steps inside. With a dismissive wave, the counselor tells her to head outside, explaining that he needs to speak with Han Li alone. She can only leave the room in frustration. Later, Han Li exits the office, reflecting on the conversation. The counselor not only talks about official matters but also probes into his family situation. As expected, the class president waits outside and asks what they talked about. Han Li explains that the counselor merely rambles about formalities and urges him to work harder. Hearing his response, she does not question him further. The moment the two of them enter the classroom, their classmates break into applause for their performance. Ting Ting freezes when she hears that Han Li is now sitting in first place, while she is in third. Han Li also notices that her performance is not bad at all, especially considering that she copied from him. That is when Ting Ting finally speaks up, timidly suggesting that they call off the bet. Out of curiosity, Han Li asks whether she truly intends to quit the bet and withdraw from the competition. The class president affirms her decision, stating that it is obvious they are on completely different levels. With her current skill, going against him is nothing more than a public execution. Han Li reminds her of the benefits and profits she might miss out on. clearly provoking her at this point. In response, she bluntly tells him that being inexperienced does not mean being stupid. She is already aware of the massive gap between them, not to mention the fact that she cannot rely on copying his trades forever. The scene shifts back to the dormitory as Han Lai resumes trading. Soon after, he receives a message from the class president, informing him that she has officially sold all her stocks. He does not quite understand her decision. Even if she loses the bet, the competition is still a perfect opportunity to gain fame, money, and recognition. Still, he feels impressed and attributes it to her temperament, which makes him like her even more. Just then, a knock echoes through the room. Turning around, Han Li finds the counselor standing at the door alongside an older man. The counselor introduces them as directors from the school. The director from the business department greets Han Lai warmly, while the school director greets him with even greater enthusiasm. They are followed by the president of the student union and a girl who appears to be close to becoming vice president. After the introductions, their purpose becomes clear. The school director presents Han Li with an interesting offer and asks whether he has anything in mind that he wants. Meanwhile, the president of the student union feels a surge of jealousy. Han Li is being offered a chance to transfer to a better school with stronger recommendations, along with several other promises from the institution. To everyone's surprise, Han Li politely turns down the offer. He claims that he is not facing any problems, and regardless of the competition's outcome, he has no intention of requesting anything from the school. Because of this, the group fell silent for a brief moment. The director then patted Han Li on the shoulder, praising his strong mindset and telling him to keep working hard. He excused himself soon after, suggesting they continue the discussion another time. Han Li thanked the director for his understanding as he left. Before leaving, the student union president handed Han Li a folder, explaining that it contained questions for an online interview. Han Li was not sure if he would need it, but he thanked him anyway. The group began discussing the competition, while the girl accompanying the student union president looked as if she had something on her mind. Once they were far enough away, she stepped closer to Han Li and asked to exchange contact information. As she did, Han Li could not help but notice her large chest. He agreed to exchange contacts but warned her that he was not active all the time. Later, in Pangi's classroom, she noticed her phone ringing. The caller was the instructor she had met earlier. Feeling puzzled, she answered and soon heard the man thanking her. Her expression darkened when she realized he was grateful for her recommendation of Han Li. It became clear that her plan had backfired. She ended the call looking dejected. Her friend noticed the sudden change in her mood and tried to ask what was wrong. One of the guys suggested going out to a new fancy restaurant for dinner, but the moment he mentioned Han Li's name, Pan Gay, already irritated, snapped at him to shut up. The poor guy was left speechless. Pan Ji then lashed out, angrily accusing him of having feelings for Han Lai and mocking him, saying she saw nothing special in him. The guy tried to explain, but Panji was not in the mood to listen. On her way home, Pangi kept thinking about how her plan had gone wrong and how it had instead given Han Li a great opportunity. When she arrived at the Pan estate, the maid informed her that her father was looking for her. She sensed that something was wrong, but before she could think further, her father called her over. He looked unusually cheerful and suddenly asked about her relationship with Han Lai. Apparently, the rumors had already spread. Panji did not know how to respond. The scene then shifted to Han Lai, who had just finished writing 3 chapters of his novel. He was about to send them to the class president for polishing when his phone buzzed with a notification. He checked his phone and looked genuinely surprised. It was a message from Chen Yanfei asking whether he had joined the trading competition. Han Li replied positively and asked why she was asking. At the same time, he thought about how long it had been since they last talked. He reflected that this was why long-distance relationships rarely worked, though it was not like they were dating, so it did not really matter. Chen Yanfei replied, explaining that one of her classmates had joined the competition and lost. She also mentioned that her best friend's younger brother studied at the same university as Han Lai. Han Lai responded that she only remembered to text because she had become curious about his rank. His comment caught her slightly off guard. She explained that she had a very tight schedule. She then revealed her plan to visit him with her best friend. Han Li was briefly surprised. After thinking it over, he told her to give him a call when she arrived. Far away, Panji sat in her living room. Her father's voice suddenly called out to her, startling her as if she had done something wrong. She turned around and tried to act cute, claiming she was tired and suggesting they talk another time. Everything should have gone her way. That was until her mother entered the room, noting that it had been weeks since she last saw Pan-gi and stepping forward for a hug. It was clear that Pan-gi would not be able to avoid what was coming. Pan-gi maintains a neutral expression and wonders what could have made both her parents ambush her like this. Turning to her dad, she notices he was talking with her friends. The old man nods and reveals that he has been trading on the stock market lately, but unfortunately, he has been on a losing streak. Pan-gi replies that she already knows about this and begins to connect the dots. Because of this, Pan-gi's dad tells her that her mom has been nagging him non-stop, and thanks to his work friend at school, he heard about the protagonist. Since the young man excels in trading and is already acquainted with his daughter, he wants to invite him over. Pan-gi does not like this and expresses that the idea is outrageous. Her mom chimes in, pleading with her daughter to help her dad and in turn save her from getting headaches whenever she looks at his investments. Her mom even offers to treat Han-li well. However, Pan-gi feels that something is wrong with the way they keep referring to the boy, almost as if both of them have a thing for him. So Pan-gi shouts that it is impossible. This causes her mom to ask for the reason behind her outburst and refusal. Pan-gi tries to argue that the boy is inexperienced and expresses doubt about his ability. Her mom asks if it is wise to draw conclusions without talking to him first and suggests inviting someone along with him, preferably a female classmate, to their home. Seeing her daughter remain silent, the verdict is delivered. She suggests that they come over the next day for dinner. Pan-gi leaves to make the arrangements while both parents continue discussing her and the protagonist. The scene then changes to the following day. Han-li wakes up to a message on his phone. She invites him to her home and for some reason he can tell that the girl is upset. Han-li agrees and informs her that he will be bringing the class president along. Later, he receives another message. This one is from Chen Yanfei, insisting that he comes over for lunch. Later on, Chen Yanfei can be seen waiting with her friend, finally seeing the protagonist after what feels like forever. Han-li calls her by name. Chen Yanfei freezes when she sees him. She notices how different he looks and can barely recognize him. She even asks if he swapped his head. The protagonist awkwardly explains that he got a haircut and is no longer wearing glasses. Chen Yanfei thinks he has always been good-looking. It is just that she never noticed before because he was previously bruised and swollen. She introduces her best friend, who looks flustered after seeing the protagonist. Both of them become acquainted while teasing him, making the boy feel a little awkward. To everyone's surprise, Chen Yanfei's best friend's brother turns out to be none other than the protagonist's dorm buddy. Our boy looks surprised and puzzled as he asks the reason he came. Meanwhile, the guy is shocked and questions the meaning behind the protagonist holding his sister's hands. The protagonist's dorm mate stood frozen, silently wondering how this guy even knew his sister. Before he could think too deeply about it, his older sister turned back and asked why he was just standing there like a statue. She then formally introduced the protagonist to her younger brother, and that was when his name was finally revealed. Ding Yu. Our boy immediately noted the coincidence in his mind, but Ding Yu suddenly clenched his fist, an action so abrupt that both his sister and the protagonist were left confused. Before the awkward tension could linger, Chen Yanfei stepped forward and suggested that they eat first and talk later. As she spoke, she pulled Ding Yu's sister along and casually handed their bags to the protagonist. He stared at them, visibly confused by the sudden responsibility. Noticing his reaction, Chen Yanfei teased him and told him to carry the bags properly. Han-li had no choice but to agree, though his expression remained genuinely puzzled. Ding Yu, on the other hand, looked like his entire worldview had just collapsed. He could not believe what he was seeing. After all, he had always been the one carrying his sister's bag. Even back in high school, her boyfriend had never received the kind of treatment Han-li was getting now. The thought made Ding Yu spiral. He started overthinking everything. Their relationship, their closeness, and the terrifying possibility of his sister falling for this guy and eventually marrying him. The idea alone was too much to bear. Han-li noticed Ding Yu's strange reaction and called out to him. Startled, Ding Yu responded without thinking and accidentally addressed Han-li as his brother-in-law. The moment the words left his mouth, he realized the disaster he had caused. Chen Yanfei was the first to burst into laughter. Ding Yu's sister immediately turned red with embarrassment, while Chen Yanfei commented teasingly about how interesting her friend's younger brother was. Ding Yu's sister smacked him on the head. The poor guy tried to explain himself, but all he received in return was a round of scolding from his elder sister. After the sibling banter finally died down, Ding Yu suggested that it was time to eat and insisted that Han Lai and Chen Yanfei go ahead first. Later, inside the restaurant, Chen Yanfei accidentally tripped. Han Li reacted instantly, catching her before she could fall. He casually commented on her heels and wondered out loud why girls always seemed so prone to tripping, even on flat ground. Chen Yanfei was both shocked and embarrassed by his remark. She pointed out that he sounded like someone who had been around many girls. Before the conversation could continue, a familiar voice interrupted them. Yu Yun appeared, looking visibly puzzled when she saw Han Lai together with Chen Yanfei. Han Li himself could not understand why she would be at this restaurant of all places at this exact moment. Noticing his expression, Yu Yun pretended that she had merely run into them by coincidence. She pouted slightly and asked about his relationship with Chen Yanfei. Han Li explained that Chen Yanfei had actually been his classmate back in high school. Yu Yun turned toward Chen Yanfei, genuine surprise written across her face. She asked whether the two of them had dated back then and openly commented on Chen Yanfei's beautiful appearance. Finally, she turned back to Han Lai and demanded to know why he had never mentioned Chen Yanfei before, or even thought to introduce the two of them. Although Yu Yun is the one who suggests that everyone should introduce themselves properly, she cannot help but feel anxious. From what she sees, Chen Yanfei is literally the textbook version of someone's first love. Our boy remains silent the entire time, and Chen Yanfei soon asks whether he plans to introduce her to his classmate at all. Seeing him stuck in a difficult position, Yu Yun steps forward and introduces herself as his classmate from the same department. Chen Yanfei does not expect Yu Yun to take the lead. She gently takes Yu Yun's hand and decides to play along. She introduces herself as Chen Yanfei, also his classmate. She notes that our boy seems quite popular and admits that she was initially worried about whether he could adapt to school life. Yu Yun replies that our boy is indeed an amazing person. She not only mentions how smart he is, but also how well he gets along with all the girls in their class. Yu Yun's words instantly make our boy break into a cold sweat. Chen Yanfei understands and adds that he has always been outstanding. She even reveals that her father once commented on him. Her face stays calm on the surface, but her fingers pinch our boy tightly. Han Li can only endure the pain in silence, while Chen Yanfei continues to scold him. He knows he is already in a dangerous situation. Anything he says will only make things worse, so the best option is to remain silent. Meanwhile, Yu Yun is shocked to learn that our boy has even met Chen Yanfei's father. Chen Yanfei suddenly leans forward and asks whether Yu Yun likes Han Li and if she has made any progress. On the surface, she talks about our boy's preferences, but deep down, she does not understand why she is so concerned about his relationships. By all logic, she should not interfere or feel this irritated. Perhaps she acts this way because she senses competition and clearly does not like Yu Yun. When she sees her friend arrive, she pulls Ding Xiang closer and introduces her to Yu Yun. Chen Yanfei keeps talking about Ding Xiang, leaving her confused as she feels dragged into a drama without knowing the script. Chen Yanfei simply whispers for her to play along and promises to buy her lunch later. Yu Yun feels both anxious and confused. It gets worse when she looks at our boy. He appears completely unfazed, as if none of this concerns him. Suddenly, the class president walks in and comments on her plans with Han Lai. When she sees the two girls, she smiles and asks if they are the ones he mentioned in his text who were coming. Chen Yanfei and her friend freeze when they see Ting Ting. In an instant, the conversation turns into a fierce confrontation. Ting Ting, proud and full of confidence, introduces herself as the class president. Our boy senses the hostile shift in the atmosphere and quietly thinks about disappearing. On one side stands the class president, known for her fiery personality. If Han Li goes against her now, their future relationship will surely suffer. On the other side is Chen Yanfei, someone he never imagines getting close to in this life. Their encounter only happens because of the train incident, and after everything they have been through, he cannot bring himself to oppose her either. The good news is that neither of them is officially his girlfriend. The bad news is that no matter who he supports, he will still end up suffering. Meanwhile, Chen Yanfei cheerfully introduces herself to Ting Ting, saying that our boy has indeed mentioned her during their conversation. Ting Ting looks surprised when she learns that Chen Yanfei is also our boy's classmate. She immediately assumes that Chen Yanfei must be his ex-girlfriend, a statement that leaves Chen Yanfei puzzled. Han Li has never mentioned having a girlfriend, let alone an ex. Thinking quickly, Chen Yanfei assumes this must be some kind of rumor. After pondering for a moment, she tells everyone that they are simply overthinking things. She confidently states that our boy does not have an ex-girlfriend, but what he does have is a crush. This instantly shocks both Ting Ting and Yu Yun. The class president wonders how Han Li could even have a crush on someone. After a brief moment of thought, she understands the situation. She concludes that Han Li's relationship with Chen Yanfei must be a one-sided love, filled with years of fruitless effort. With this in mind, Ting Ting tells Chen Yanfei that from the time she has spent with our boy, it is unlikely he would secretly admire someone. If he likes someone, he would openly express his feelings. In other words, it is more likely that some girls simply assume he likes them. Although this is not a direct jab at Chen Yanfei, she still feels irritated. Ting Ting's attitude and the way she talks about our boy make it seem as if she knows everything about him. This sparks Chen Yanfei's curiosity about their relationship. She asks the class president who Han Li is interested in. Is it her or the inflated one? Yu Yun immediately defends herself and denies having anything to do with our protagonist. She adds that our boy is simply popular and outstanding, so it is normal for girls to be interested in him. Chen Yanfei listens carefully. She thinks that if she did not know what kind of person Yu Yun really is, she might have believed her words. Yu Yun continues speaking, growing curious as she asks Chen Yanfei whether our boy truly had a crush back in high school. She suggests that the reason he never confessed might be because the girl was too dominant and overbearing. Unlike a certain someone, Yu Yun claims she supports and encourages him, even if he is a guy who makes every girl's heart race. Surprisingly, Chen Yanfei nods in understanding. She knows our boy is very handsome, so it is normal for him to be the campus heartthrob. If that is the case, Chen Yanfei feels she should thank Yu Yun for her effort and encouragement. She tries to downplay it as nothing important, but then casually reveals that they are even willing to pay for and cover our boy's daily meals. Our boy, who has stayed silent until now, finally explodes. Yu Yun's words make it sound as if he relies on others all the time. At the same moment, he realizes he is completely cooked. Chen Yanfei immediately demands an explanation, knowing full well that he has enough money to support himself after buying a house. Han Li is stunned. He does not expect her to remember something he mentioned so casually before. Both Yu Yun and the class president instantly become interested when they hear that our boy bought a house. The class president starts to wonder if this is some kind of arrangement and suspects it must involve Chen Yanfei. Otherwise, how would she know about it? Feeling pressured, Han Li reveals the truth. He admits that he did buy a house, but there are restrictions. On top of that, the prices are so absurd that he has no choice but to use his allowance to make the purchase. Because of this, he cannot possibly ask his parents for more money. Instead, he relies on the kindness of his classmates. Han Li completely makes this story up on the spot, but it is just convincing enough to help him escape the situation. However, Chen Yanfei refuses to believe it. In her mind, most of his money clearly went into plastic surgery. Still, Chen Yanfei thinks to herself that our boy is indeed outstanding. Otherwise, she would not be interested in him in the first place. With that thought, she only makes a dry remark about him freeloading meals. Han Li feels slightly annoyed. He jokingly says that he is simply seizing a rare opportunity. Chen Yanfei immediately responds by calling him soft-tempered. At that moment, his system window suddenly appears. He receives a new skill simply for joking around in a tense situation. Meanwhile, the class president and Yu Yun completely misunderstand the exchange. The class president wonders what Chen Yanfei means by calling our boy soft-tempered. She starts to think Chen Yanfei is implying that he was bullied back in high school. Despite knowing our boy is outstanding, she begins to question whether he could have been manipulated back then. If that is true, she believes the blame must fall on Chen Yanfei. Her anger flares up as she realizes what she thinks is the real reason our boy refuses to date anyone. In her mind, it is all because of Chen Yanfei. She calls out to Chen Yanfei, using the word chubby to get her attention. She tells Chen Yanfei to shut up if she does not know what she is talking about. She questions the earlier comment about free food and firmly clarifies that they enjoy paying for our boy. She then tells Chen Yanfei to mind her own business. Chen Yanfei freezes when she hears herself being called chubby. She tries to fire back, but the moment she compares herself to the class president's killer figure, she falls short. Annoyed and frustrated, she snaps at our boy. Pointing at the class president and Yu Yun, she accuses both of them of insulting her. She demands that our boy do something about it, or she will leave immediately. This confrontation instantly draws the attention of everyone in the restaurant. Our boy finds himself trapped in an impossible situation. He quickly calculates the best way to resolve this without offending either side. An idea suddenly forms in his mind. He starts by addressing Chen Yanfei, calling her someone he trusts and reminding her of the history they share. Chen Yanfei tells him to continue, feeling relieved that he has chosen her side, but in the very next moment, she freezes in shock. Our boy thanks her for introducing him to Ding Xiang. He says that he never believed in love at first sight before, but now he does. He then turns to Ding Xiang and asks her to become his girlfriend. All the girls show expressions of pure shock. Ding Xiang stutters, her face turning bright red with embarrassment. She suddenly runs away, claiming she just remembered something urgent she needs to handle with her brother. Worry flashes across Chen Yunfei's face. She is about to ask whether our boy truly likes her best friend. However, his firm and resolute expression shuts down that thought. He asks her to consider his situation instead. This forces Chen Yanfei to reflect on everything they have been through together. She slowly realizes that her reaction has indeed been excessive. Among everyone present, only the class president seems to understand what our boy is truly trying to do. This realization makes Chen Yanfei feel even more upset, knowing that her perfect time with Han Li has been completely ruined by these two girls. As if reading her thoughts, Han Li suddenly turns to the class president and addresses her using the name of the female lead from their novel. He demands to know who gave her permission to act this way. Ting Ting freezes in confusion. She does not understand what is happening, nor how our boy knows that name, especially when he even uses a specific line from her novel. This causes Ting Ting to break out in a cold sweat. She is certain that our boy has seen all the intense, intimate, and romantic scenes she wrote. If he mentions even one of them, she knows she is completely finished. With this in mind, she has no choice but to timidly apologize and admit her fault. Meanwhile, Yu Yun is utterly shocked. She has never seen Ting Ting apologize first, nor has she ever seen her react this way. Even Chen Yanfei wears a suspicious expression. She has never seen our boy act so domineering before, which makes her believe that there must be something going on between the two of them. Deciding to deal with that later, she turns to our boy and apologizes, admitting that she is also partly to blame. Chen Yanfei then apologizes to Yu Yun for her earlier remarks and thanks her for genuinely supporting our boy. Yu Yun is slightly stunned by the sudden apology. She says that they are all good friends of our boy, and that everything is simply a misunderstanding. She also thanks Chen Yanfei for introducing Ding Xiang, whom she jokingly calls our boy's future sister-in-law. Chen Yanfei holds back her annoyance and tells Yu Yun that she is welcome. Seeing this, Han Li steps forward with a serious expression. He tells the class president to take Yu Yun away and make sure that this kind of incident never happens again. Ting Ting hurriedly obeys, while silently promising herself that she will get back at him one day. Once the disaster finally ends, our protagonist lets out a long sigh of relief. At the same time, the system rewards him with experience points. Now alone with Chen Yanfei, she asks if he truly likes her best friend. She wants to confirm whether he only used her as a shield. Han Li playfully responds by asking what would happen if he really did like her. Hearing this, Chen Yunfei feels surprised. She never thinks he would be interested in delicate girls. Out of curiosity, she asks whether he dislikes her personality and wonders if she is too dominant. Our boy explains that it is not like that at all. In his mind, compared to the class president, Chen Yunfei's dominance is much milder. It is more like a princess attitude, which is exactly why she feels adorable and lively. He explains that people sometimes fall in love, but later grow exhausted. In the end, they choose not to love or to become ruthless. Chen Yanfei looks at him in confusion and asks him to explain more clearly. He tells her that he wants her to be actively involved in a relationship. In other words, he wants her to take the initiative and keep things exciting. She seems to understand this. With a playful smile, she asks if he wants some conflict in their relationship, so they can work things out together. Han Li feels her suggestion comes far too suddenly. Then, unexpectedly, she opens up. She says that from the moment they first meet on the train, he is exactly her type, and she has always wanted something long-term with him. She continues, saying that she originally plans to wait, but now he is constantly surrounded by women, so she can no longer afford to hesitate. This time, she sincerely asks our protagonist out. Her confession leaves him slightly embarrassed. Chen Yanfei explains in detail that she wants to find a good partner and experience life together, talking about building a family and everything that comes with it. Han Li then seriously asks what she would do if she makes a wrong choice and ends up with someone incompatible. She calmly answers that it would simply be a mistake. She adds that loving the wrong person is still love, and if someone never falls in love, they might never find the right person at all. Our protagonist silently agrees. Chen Yunfei is smart, brave, and beautiful, and that is exactly why he fell for her in his previous life. But now things are different. With regret in his voice, he apologizes and says that he needs time to think about dating her. Chen Yunfei stares at him in disbelief. Han Li's thoughts drift back to his past 30 years of failure, filled with tragedy and unfulfilled ambition. Although he tells Chen Yanfei that she is the first girl in his heart, he also admits that because of his ambitions, he is not ready for a relationship. He knows he is not a good person. He is greedy and willing to use any means or anyone to achieve success. With that honesty, he apologizes once more. Chen Yanfei freezes in shock after being rejected. Meanwhile, the class president keeps sending messages to our boy. Her texts shift from questioning to threats and then to apologies. At this point, she behaves like a desperate girlfriend who fears losing a man who has suddenly struck gold. Han Li's continued silence only makes her more frustrated. Finally, his phone buzzes with a new message. Han Li invites her to buy some fruit so they can visit Panji together. Later, Ting Ting arrives at the fruit store. Our protagonist has already been waiting for her, so she asks whether they really need to buy fruits at all. Our boy questions what she means by that. He reminds her that both of them are students, so buying fruits as a gift is not a bad thing. Besides, it is the intention that matters, not the contents. The class president understands and decides to pick some fruits herself. After a while, she turns to our protagonist and asks for his opinion. Han Lai senses another meaning behind her gaze and asks why the class president is staring at him. That is when she calmly reminds him to pay. Han Li immediately rejects the idea, saying that he is broke and that she must pay for her own items. Ting Ting protests, bringing up the incident at the restaurant and practically telling him to compensate her for the humiliation she suffered back then. However, our boy sticks firmly to his choice. Ting Ting then reminds him how she regularly treats him to meals and accuses him of refusing to even pay for fruit. Left with no choice, our boy decides he has had enough and steps forward to pay. While doing so, the vendor comments on their banter, mistakenly thinking the two of them are a couple. During the payment, Ting Ting unintentionally sees his wallet. When she notices the amount of money inside, she accuses Han Lai of being rich while still letting her treat him for free. Han Li makes a vague excuse, but it only annoys her further. This prompts her to secretly think of ways to squeeze him dry and prevent him from chasing girls in the future. To her shock, our boy recalls her notes and believes she earns a great commission from them. Ting Ting plays dumb and claims she has no idea what he is talking about. Later, however, she admits that she did write a novel, though its impact was minimal. Our boy listens intently before commenting on the intimate and romantic parts of the novel, which he finds very interesting. His words leave her completely stunned. While heading to Panji's place, Ting Ting finds the atmosphere unbearably awkward. She wonders why our boy has not said anything the whole time. Unable to bear it any longer, she speaks up and asks about the kind of girl he likes. Our boy reminds her that he already confessed to a girl before and said that he likes those types of girls. Ting Ting calls him an idiot, adding that she does not believe him. Our boy replies that she would not believe him even if he told the truth. This leads her to ask what he thinks about Pan Gi. Our boy gives a casual response, saying Pan Gi is a nice person. The class president presses further and asks whether he likes her. With a thoughtful expression, he considers Pan Gi's background, her wealth, and her beauty, wondering aloud what man would not be interested in her. Curious, he asks why she is questioning him about this. Ting Ting counters by asking whether he only likes Pan Gi because she is rich and beautiful, while internally wondering if our boy is truly that dense when a girl asks if he likes someone. She panics when our boy asks whether she is afraid he might steal Pan Gi from her, so she quickly reveals that she was only joking. At the same time, she realizes that our boy still thinks she is a lesbian. Leaning closer, Ting Ting reveals that she is actually straight and does not like girls at all. Apparently, she was only following what our boy's online version told her to do. Han Li looks at her with half surprise and half amusement, jokingly asking whether she used a girl as a reference for the intimate parts of her novel. Before Ting Ting can retort, he leans closer and suggests booking a private room the following day. He even adds that he will be the male lead in her novel. At that moment, our boy unknowingly displays his natural riz. Ting Ting erupted in a fit of rage, loudly declaring that she would never agree to share a room with him. Her voice was sharp and full of resistance. When she boldly suggested being the one on top, our boy merely leaned back with a relaxed posture and calmly disagreed. Her reaction made him suspicious, and he questioned whether she was looking down on him. Offended, Ting Ting explained that this situation was different and that doing such a thing required real skill. Hearing this, our boy jokingly remarked that the class president seemed very knowledgeable. As a result, the driver coughed lightly, clearly trying to ease the awkward tension. Ting Ting's face instantly turned red as she realized they were not alone. However, what truly annoyed her was our boy telling her to pay for the cab since he had already paid for the fruits. Despite her complaints, she still played along, grumbling about his behavior. Suddenly, her expression froze. Panji was standing there, waiting for them. The class president immediately struck up a conversation, complimenting Panji's house. Panji accepted the praise politely. Turning to our boy, she explained that she rarely invited friends over and apologized in advance for any inconvenience. Once inside the mansion, Ting Ting stared around in awe, silently estimating the house to be worth several hundred million. Han Li soon noticed a luxurious piano and asked Panji if she played. When she confirmed it, he suggested she perform a piece. Panji playfully refused, saying he didn't deserve it. At that moment, a woman's voice rang out, scolding Panji for speaking so rudely to their guest. She then introduced herself as Panji's mother. Ting Ting immediately addressed her respectfully as auntie, which made Panji's mother smile in surprise. She commented that Ting Ting was the girl her daughter always talked about. Han Li seized the opportunity to properly introduce himself. He presented the fruits he and the class president had brought as a gift and even offered to take them to the kitchen himself. Panji's mother was taken aback by his politeness. Accepting the gift, she offered to show him the way to the kitchen. In her heart, she thought he was a sensible young man, just as her husband had described. She then told the two girls to head to the living room and instructed Pangi to call her father. Pangi agreed and went to fetch him. Meanwhile, Pangi's mother took the chance to have a proper conversation with Han Lai. She asked about his family, and he honestly replied that he came from an average background. Rather than looking down on him, she admired how his upbringing had made him sensible and composed. As the conversation continued, she learned more about his family and overall situation. In her mind, she firmly believed that his background was not a problem at all. With her husband's support, she was convinced that Han Li was a perfect match for her daughter. Just then, Pange's father entered the room, looking unusually excited the moment he laid eyes on our boy. Without hesitation, he suggested that they sit together and enjoy a cup of tea, leaving Han Li momentarily stunned by the man's enthusiasm. Meanwhile, Panji's mother and Ting Ting were left almost speechless by his sudden warmth. Noticing the awkward pause, Panji's mother suggested that Panji join her for a glass of red wine. However, her daughter refused and casually asked for a Coke instead, a choice her mother found highly unusual. As Panji's father poured tea for Han Li, he seized the opportunity to start a proper conversation. He spoke indirectly, hinting that people who enjoyed drinking tea tended to be more composed and patient. Han Li accepted the gesture politely, already aware of what the man was trying to say without stating it outright. The two continued sipping their tea, and Han Lai used the brief exchange to better understand why Pangi naturally kept her distance from men. He suspected it had much to do with her family, and he also sensed that the conversation itself was a subtle interrogation. Just then, Pange's mother interrupted them, announcing that dinner was ready. The dining table was filled with various luxurious dishes. Pange's father invited Han Li to take a seat, but for some reason Han Li felt anxious. It was likely because this was his first time visiting a girl's home and dining with her entire family. Sensing the awkward atmosphere, Pangi tried to ease the tension by teasing Ting Ting, who immediately responded with irritation. Before the exchange could continue, Pange's father cleared his throat, insisting they eat before the food grew cold. Pange's mother gently offered Ting Ting some food, treating her warmly as her daughter's best friend. Pange's father, on the other hand, placed Pan-gi's favorite crab in front of her. To everyone's surprise, Pan-gi calmly passed the crab to Ting-Ting instead. Her father nearly exploded at the sight, but forced himself to remain calm. To steady his emotions, he poured himself a glass of red wine and invited Han Li to drink with him. Han Li accepted, though he made it clear that he could only drink a little. This immediately gave Pan-gi's mom the chance to tease her daughter. Meanwhile, the class president was shocked to learn that Pan-gi was drinking Coke instead of alcohol. With a confident smile, Ting-Ting picked up a glass and challenged her. The scene made Han Li uneasy. He knew that if Ting-Ting's alcohol tolerance was low, the responsibility of getting her home safely would inevitably fall on him. As expected, after just a few sips, the class president was already drunk. Han Li watched the two intoxicated girls in silence, feeling utterly speechless. Inwardly, he couldn't help but laugh at how both of them were such lightweights despite their earlier confidence. Pan-gi's mother was also slightly tipsy. Watching her daughter and Ting-Ting together reminded her of her own best friend from the past, when they had once been inseparable. However, after that friend was cheated on, she was never the same again. Ting-Ting immediately responded, voicing her own thoughts. She agreed with Pan-gi's mother, declaring that all men were scum, nothing more than shameless scoundrels only interested in playing around. Unsurprisingly, Pan-gi nodded in agreement. Both girls openly expressed their dislike for men, and each sharp remark felt as though it was aimed directly at our protagonist. Feeling increasingly uncomfortable, our boy decided it was time to leave. Pan-gi, however, commented that the more she thought about him, the more annoyed she became. The conversation suddenly took a strange turn when Ting-Ting casually brought up candles and whips, prompting Pan-gi to remind her not to forget the dog collar. Pan-gi's mother was left utterly shocked, unable to understand what the two girls were talking about. Meanwhile, Pan-gi's father observed the scene in silence. In his mind, he wondered if this was the reason his daughter disliked men so much. Yet something didn't quite add up. He knew that Pan-gi had never mentioned a boy's name, nor had she ever said she was in love. With that thought, he addressed our boy as teacher, remarking that people's perspectives could change and suggesting they have a private chat. Han Li was left both speechless and awkward, quickly asking him to stop calling him that. Once they were alone, Pan-gi's father confessed that he had never seen such a capable young man before. Han Li assumed the man was drunk and politely suggested that he stop drinking. That was when Pan-gi's father suddenly broke down, begging Han Li to become his son-in-law. Naturally, Han Li was completely shocked. Seeing his reaction, Pan-gi's father asked if he disliked his daughter. He boldly declared that as long as Han Li wanted her, he would give him his full support. Han Li tried to explain himself, but the man was far too drunk to listen. Later, outside the house, Han Li helped the class president along the road. He felt utterly exhausted dealing with her, yet he couldn't deny that seeing the usually composed class president drunk was a rather rare experience. Suddenly, Ting-Ting shoved him aside. Han Li hurriedly tried to stop her, warning her to be careful. In response, Ting-Ting scoffed, claiming she was perfectly fine and could even run. All Han Li could do was watch helplessly as she sprinted straight toward a pole. Thankfully, he managed to catch her just in time before she crashed into it. Realizing how late it had become, Han Li decided that the best option was to book a room for the night. Meanwhile, back at Pan-gi's house, her father returned inside, only for his wife to inform him that Pan-gi was already asleep. She added that they needed to have a serious conversation. Bracing himself, Pan-gi's father prepared to be scolded. However, instead of reprimanding him, his wife calmly asked what he truly thought about Han Li. He found himself sweating under the pressure, feigning ignorance as he desperately tried to talk his way out of the situation. Suddenly, Pan-gi's mother slammed her hand on the table. Her anger flared as she sharply questioned whether he actually supported the idea of a man having multiple wives. Caught off guard, he hurriedly explained himself, insisting that she had completely misunderstood his words. Still fuming, she stared at him for a moment before finally deciding to let him off the hook. Shifting to the main topic, she asked about how our boy was managing his trading accounts. In response, Pan-gi's father casually revealed that he had taken care of everything himself and had even written a check for our boy. At this, his wife reacted in shock, asking if he had lost his mind. Calmly, her husband explained that the profits could simply be considered payment for our boy's work. Besides, given their family background, money was hardly an issue. Hearing this, His wife finally seemed to understand what he was getting at. The conversation ended with her complaining that our boy wasn't making any moves at all, lamenting that his good looks were going to waste. Later, in the hotel room, our boy stared at the check in his hand, recognizing it as a golden opportunity to turn a serious profit. At the same time, Ting Ting slowly began to wake up. She looked around in confusion, realizing she was in a hotel room she didn't recognize. Her thoughts were abruptly interrupted when she spotted our boy nearby. Still under the influence of alcohol, she slowly approached him, prompting our boy to hurriedly explain their situation. However, shock spread across his face when Ting Ting suddenly sat on top of him. Panicking, he told her to back off. This left Ting Ting both speechless and annoyed. She accused him of pretending, saying she found his behavior even in her dream extremely irritating. Then, she began scolding him, claiming he was always playing with her feelings and constantly teasing her. Unexpectedly, she confessed that even though our protagonist was the kind of person she hated the most, she couldn't deny that she was interested in him. Right after Ting Ting threw up, our boy grew visibly annoyed. Staring at the mess she had made, he silently vowed to never let that class president drink again in the future. The following morning, Ting Ting woke up abruptly. Once again, she was confused to find herself in a hotel room. Thinking back on what had happened the previous day made her anxious. Driven by that unease, she quickly checked the bed. Finding nothing suspicious, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. Later, she noticed a note left behind by our protagonist. This only confused the class president further. Why would he leave her a note? In the next moment, shock washed over her when she spotted a red stain on the couch. Her mind went blank as she jumped to the conclusion that she must have lost her V-card. Elsewhere, our boy was busy buying breakfast. Suddenly, his phone began blowing up non-stop. When he checked, he saw that Ting Ting was frantically texting him through his writer account. The urgency of her messages struck him as odd. Han Li decided to call the class president directly. The moment she heard his voice on the other end, Ting Ting felt a wave of relief. At least it wasn't our protagonist. Unbeknownst to her, our boy was simply using a voice changer. Our protagonist began by teasing the class president as usual. Still in a playful mood, he casually asked about the progress of their relationship and what had happened the previous night. In response, Ting Ting admitted that she had no idea what was going on. The only thing she remembered was heading to her friend's place. After that, everything was a blur, and the next thing she knew, she had woken up in a hotel room. She also mentioned the red stain she had found on the sofa. Hearing this, our protagonist nearly spat out his food. Laughing awkwardly, he joked that it sounded like they had made quite a bit of progress in their relationship. He was surprised she was reacting this way, especially since he had already left a note explaining everything. Seeing how shaken she was, he calmly explained that our protagonist must have gone out to charge his phone. The explanation sounded reasonable, and Ting Ting finally relaxed. She hung up the call and went back to read the note our protagonist had left behind. Even so, she couldn't help feeling annoyed that he had told her to cover part of the hotel bill. Not long after, she returned to her room. Ting Ting's friend was surprised to see her and immediately asked where she had been all day. Ting Ting replied vaguely, saying that she had stayed out overnight. Her friend raised an eyebrow at the answer. Horrified, Yu Yun suddenly began to wonder if she had actually spent the night at Pangee's place. At the same time, elsewhere, our protagonist was at the bank, cashing the check he had received from Pangee's father. As he glanced at his phone, he was surprised to see a message from the class president's friend, asking pointed questions about what had happened the previous day. He replied casually, complaining that his phone had died. Almost immediately after, another message popped up, this time from the class president herself. She demanded to know what he had been doing. He explained that his phone had run out of battery and that he had been at the bank and wanted to get something. However, she suddenly became flustered and accused him of being a pervert. Realizing there had been a misunderstanding, our protagonist hurried to explain, but before he could, he discovered that the class president had already blocked him. Confused yet oddly amused, he decided to block her as well. Strangely enough, it made him feel pretty good about himself. Our protagonist headed toward his next destination. As he walked, his thoughts drifted back to the girls who had humiliated and mocked him in his previous life. There was Fei Fei, who constantly ignored him, and Yu Yun, who had shamelessly used him whenever it suited her. But the class president was on an entirely different level. Not only had she caused him endless trouble, but she had also blamed him for everything and never apologized even once. It was as if fate itself had decided that he was destined to be trash, and that receiving humiliation from her was some kind of twisted reward. Although he knew the class president better than anyone, he believed she was different from the others. Ting Ting, unlike the rest of them, would always rely on others. She lacked the ability to make decisions on her own. With that thought in mind, our boy stepped into a gym. The female receptionist greeted him warmly, her smile bright and professional. This was exactly what he had come for. He planned to start working out properly. His recent training routine was no longer effective, which was why he had decided to register at a gym. As a side objective, he also intended to use this opportunity to draw Panji's attention. Later that same day, our protagonist arrived at the school director's office. He was there to collect his bonus for completing the trading competition. After checking the amount, he confirmed it totaled 5,000 yuan. That evening, back in his dorm room, his roommates heard the news and immediately asked if he would treat them to dinner. Our boy agreed without hesitation. Word quickly spread among his classmates. Because of that, he also invited Fei Fei and Yu Yun. He briefly thought about inviting the class president too, only to remember that he had blocked her earlier. After unblocking her, he was met with an annoyed message. Seizing the opportunity, our protagonist casually invited her to join them for dinner, along with his dorm mates. His nonchalant attitude only irritated Ting Ting further. She replied coldly, saying she wasn't coming. In response, our boy jokingly teased her temper and even threatened to expose the fact that she wrote novels. That did the trick. The class president immediately changed her mind and even promised to dress up personally for him. Meanwhile, Ding Yu suggested inviting Chen Yanfei and her sister as well. Thinking back on past events, he hesitated, wondering whether it was really a good idea. Still, he asked Ding Yu for his sister's contact information, only for Ding Yu to instantly regret ever suggesting it in the first place. In the next scene, the three girls arrived at the restaurant together. Han Li was momentarily left speechless at the sight before him. After giving the class president a thumbs up for wearing black stockings that accentuated her figure, the protagonist introduced his dorm friend, finally revealing that the bald one was Zhao Dongbei. Once everyone was acquainted, they moved inside. Meanwhile, Ding Yu seized the opportunity to separate his sister from the protagonist. He took a photo to send later, intending to prove that the protagonist was constantly surrounded by girls. Once seated inside the restaurant, the protagonist announced that he would cover the bill but placed a limit of around 5,000 yuan. Hearing this, Ting Ting remarked that the matter of him inviting them was already known to their classmates. The protagonist showed no concern. In response, Ting Ting asked if that meant he did not care about people talking behind his back. The protagonist made it clear that he cared little about what others thought of him, emphasizing that it was impossible to be on good terms with everyone. He revealed that the reason he invited her was because they were close, though he hinted at another reason. Speaking loudly enough for everyone to hear, he declared that he was planning to leave the university. Ting Ting reacted in shock upon hearing this. She found the situation strange, knowing that the protagonist was a jerk who constantly teased her, yet she could not help but feel a sense of happiness at the thought of him leaving. She asked if he had plans to study abroad. The protagonist replied that he was transferring to another school. While saying this, he noticed the class president's reaction, which he found very amusing. When Ting Ting asked if he was transferring to Chen Yanfei University, he responded with his usual vague and nonchalant tone, which made her furious. Turning serious, he suddenly revealed that he actually liked both Chen Yanfei and Ding Xiang at the same time, making him appear shameless and playboy-like in Ting Ting's eyes. At that moment, something struck her. She realized it was impossible to transfer schools at this point in the semester, and Chen Yanfei University did not accept transfer students. Furious, she understood that the protagonist had been messing with her the entire time. Yu Yun, seeing this, suggested that Ting Ting react more politely to the joke. Meanwhile, Fei Fei commented that Yu Yun wanted the protagonist to tease her in the same way. Because of this, both of them stared at each other before quickly looking away. The protagonist jokingly pointed out that Yu Yun was indeed correct. At that moment, Zhao Dongbei entered and suggested getting bubble teas for all the sisters-in-law. Everyone froze and stared at him in speechless surprise. Fei Fei and Yu Yun reacted with red cheeks because of the comment. Seeing that the girls loved being called sister-in-law, Xiaobei asked what flavor they liked. Yu Yun and Fei Fei each gave their own preference. Turning to Ting Ting, he addressed her as the eldest sister-in-law and asked what kind she wanted. Of course, the class president reacted with annoyance, but our boy told him to get her the strawberry kind regardless. Zhao Bei, hearing this, apologized playfully and went out to get it. Ting Ting once again snapped at our protagonist. Because of this, she decided to call Pan Gi. Sensing trouble, Han Lai immediately stopped her, acknowledged his mistake, and added that he needed to head to the gym later. Since he apologized, Ting Ting gave him a sharp stare, saying he was the one who started it in the first place. With the mood set, Han Li picked up his drink for a toast. He expressed gratitude to everyone for coming to celebrate his first milestone in life. Although he knew the rest of his classmates might be upset, he valued quality over quantity. He only cared for people he approved of, those who made him better. His speech moved everyone at the table. While the others celebrated, Ting Ting felt something was about to happen. Sure enough, before she could understand what was happening, Han Li took her hand, deliberately acting sweet, making her blush. The moment was interrupted by a phone call. The caller was Pan Ji, and Ting Ting answered, apologizing and saying she had dialed her contact by mistake. But Pan Ji, on the other hand, didn't seem convinced. Meanwhile, Zhao Bei found himself in a difficult spot. With a cunning smirk, Pan Gi asked where he was heading and the people he was going to meet. Sometime later, Zhao Bei reached the restaurant with the bubble tea, just in time for the main meal. Our boy gestured for him to sit quickly, but froze mid-statement. Everyone was stunned to see Pan Gi, who asked about their expressions and whether she wasn't invited. Ting Ting was the first to speak, asking what she was doing at the restaurant. In response, Pan Gi accused her of lying, knowing she had said on the phone that she was studying in the dorm. Caught red-handed, Ting Ting replied that she could explain. Turning to Zhao Bei, the guy explained to our boy how he had coincidentally run into Pan Gi. Han Li simply observed as the guy revealed he didn't know how to handle the situation. In response, Han Li told him it wasn't his fault for lacking some brain cells. The poor guy was getting roasted. Taking control of the situation, our protagonist told Pan Gi to sit. Originally, he had planned to treat her personally, so he gave her a seat and told everyone to enjoy the meal. With that, everyone continued enjoying the meal, with Zhao Dongbei even asking for 2 more beers. When he noticed our boy preparing to leave, he asked curiously why he was heading out so soon. Our protagonist explained that he had an appointment with his personal trainer and reassured them that he had already covered the bill. At that moment, Pan Gi suddenly spoke up, saying she had something important to discuss with him and would follow him outside. Ting Ting was left stunned. She had never seen Pan Gi take the initiative to seek out our protagonist before, feeling strange about it. Outside the restaurant, our boy wondered what Pan Gi wanted to talk about. Getting straight to the point, she asked what he and her father had discussed earlier. Han Li was puzzled. He couldn't understand why she was acting this way, considering he had only chatted with her father a few times. If that was all she wanted to know, he decided to leave quickly. He didn't want to keep his trainer waiting. But just as he turned away, Pan Gi suddenly grabbed his arm. She explained that she already knew her father was using our protagonist to push her into dating him, all because of a misunderstanding about her relationship with the class president. Our boy was surprised that she had figured it out so quickly, but he immediately denied it, saying that wasn't the case. Seeing that he was still arguing, Pan Gi began listing her father's strange behavior toward him, how he was usually strict with boys, yet unusually friendly with our protagonist. In response, Han Li calmly asked what any of that had to do with him. He pointed out that if he really were being used to interfere with her relationship with the class president, then wouldn't he just be an unfortunate scapegoat? With a softer tone, Pan Gi mentioned the conversation she had recently had with her mother. She already knew about the trading account. Once again, our boy asked what that had to do with him. Yet deep down, he felt a growing sense of unease. This was a situation he couldn't fully control. To his shock, Pan Gi bluntly explained that, in her father's eyes, he was nothing more than a hired dog, contracted because of her. She laid out the situation clearly. When she asked what he thought would happen if she cleared up the misunderstanding with her father, our protagonist replied that, in the worst-case scenario, he would simply return the trading account. After all, her father was technically his boss. They were bound by an employment relationship. Still, he knew that outcome was unlikely, especially since he had already spent 150,000 yuan out of the 500,000 her father had given him. Seeing that he still didn't fully grasp her point, Panji asked him directly what he thought of her and whether he wasn't even the slightest bit interested. Then she followed up with another question. How long did he think it would take him to manage an account worth 3 million yuan? At that moment, our boy silently used the candy he had received earlier as a system reward. Afterward, he looked at Pan Gi and asked her to get straight to the point. She hesitated for a moment, then stepped forward and spoke clearly. She wanted him to be hers. He would do whatever she asked. If she told him to leave Ting Ting and go shopping with her, he was expected to obey, no matter the situation. In simple terms, she was asking him to become her loyal lapdog. She even hinted that if he understood his position, he might get lucky. And as if that wasn't enough, she went as far as threatening to put him in a difficult situation if he refused. She went on to explain that he was someone capable, someone who could solve most of her problems. Calmly, she laid out how beneficial her proposal was and suggested that he give it serious thought. She pointed out that he must have already realized the truth. On the surface, the 500,000 yuan looked like a salary, but in reality, it was a fund her father had given him to date her. That was why his working relationship with her father existed in the first place. Everything ultimately revolved around her. However, the moment our boy realized that Pangi genuinely wanted to date him and was actually interested, he sensed an opportunity to turn the tables. He suggested that she find someone else, pointing out that even her father knew he already liked someone. In response, Panji asked calmly whether he was referring to Ting Ting or perhaps one of her peers. Stepping closer, she told him not to pretend. She claimed she could read him like a book. Since she already knew what he wanted, she revealed that she had plenty of money she rarely even spent. If he wished, she could transfer funds directly to him and even introduce him to wealthy clients. She explained that starting from scratch with the money he currently had would be extremely difficult. To make huge profits, he would need to work several times harder. The moment he heard this, our boy's attitude flipped instantly. He began asking about the amount she had, suggesting she give him a rough estimate. Panji was taken aback by his sudden change in demeanor, but she still began calculating her assets. Taking everything into account, she revealed that she had roughly 20 million yuan in liquid assets under her name. Our boy was momentarily stunned. He hadn't expected her to be that rich. Because of this, he agreed to her proposal. Bluntly, he said that he would be her boyfriend. The words left Pan Yi completely shocked by his sudden boldness, especially how easily he had been bought by money. As she questioned whether he was serious about becoming her boyfriend, our boy reflected inwardly. He had wanted nothing to do with her before, but since she had come to him on her own, he had no choice but to play along. In the end, Pan Gi accepted their relationship. She even offered to transfer 1 million yuan to open a new trading account, thinking that our boy was just like her, someone who knew how to seize opportunities when they appeared. Our boy immediately countered, saying the amount was too small given the nature of their relationship. In response, Panji warned him not to push his luck. Suddenly, our boy stepped forward and grabbed her by the waist. Before she could even process what was happening, he leaned in and kissed her. What she hadn't expected was that it happened right there in public, clearly witnessed by many passers-by. Her mind went completely blank. After pulling back, our boy casually asked if she was satisfied. But poor Pange was far too stunned to give any response at all. Han Li gets into a cab and casually reminds Pangi to transfer the money. Before leaving, he jokingly calls her a novice. Fuming, Pangi calls him a dog. After all, because of that public kiss, she is now forced to date him. Worse still, it was her first kiss. His sudden aggressiveness makes her wonder just how many girls he has kissed before. Yet strangely, she doesn't hate it. That unfamiliar feeling makes her cheeks warm, and she finds herself blushing. For the first time, she begins to wonder whether she truly has feelings for our protagonist. Meanwhile, inside the cab, our boy thinks about the effect of the system's candy. He also reflects on Panji's attempts to manipulate him, but thankfully, he managed to turn the situation around. Letting out a sigh, he feels a hint of regret. He had originally planned to reserve his first kiss for Ting Ting. Back at the restaurant, Panji finally returns to the table. The class president tells her to eat quickly before the food gets cold. But at that moment, Ting Ting notices something off. Panji's expression changes instantly when Ting Ting asks about her lips. Seeing her reaction, Ting Ting asks again, slower this time. Only then does Pangi realize with a jolt that she forgot to check her face in the mirror. Ting Ting points it out bluntly. Her lipstick is gone. Pan-gi hurriedly tries to come up with an excuse, claiming it must have come off while chewing gum. Ting Ting doesn't buy it. She questions how an expensive, high-end lipstick could disappear so easily just from chewing gum. Pan-gi is left speechless, unable to give a convincing explanation. Every excuse she attempts only makes Ting Ting more suspicious. In her mind, the conclusion becomes clear. Pan-gi and our protagonist kissed. What she wants to know now is who made the first move. Silently clenching her fist, Ting Ting feels a surge of frustration. She has only ever held hands with our protagonist, yet Pan-gi has already reached the kissing stage. Then, without warning, Ting Ting does something completely unexpected. She suddenly leans forward and kisses Pan-gi, just to confirm whether she had really been chewing gum. The entire table freezes in shock. Seeing everyone's stunned reaction, Pan-gi abruptly stands up and decides to leave. In her mind, she can't help comparing the two, and realizes that our boy was far better. Recalling the taste and sensation from earlier makes her hesitate. It leaves her wondering whether she truly has feelings for him. Back at the table, Xiao Bei regrets not taking a photo of the scene. Meanwhile, Ting Ting snaps at the others, asking if they've never seen girls kiss before. Later, the girls thank our boy's roommates for paying for the cab. Xiao Bei responds proudly, saying he would do anything for their sisters-in-law. Afterward, the two boys begin discussing Ting Ting kissing Pan-gi at the restaurant. Xiao Bei finds the sight of two beauties kissing strangely amusing. In response, Ding Yu wonders out loud whether this confirms that the class president is a lesbian. The two of them continue speculating, and Ding Yu eventually concludes that Ting Ting might be bisexual. Unbeknownst to them, someone associated with Pan-gi's father overhears the entire conversation. The man immediately informs Pan-gi's father. The scene shifts to our protagonist at the gym. While working out, his phone suddenly rings. When he checks it, he sees a message from Chen Yanfei. Reading her text, he realizes that Ding Yu must have told his sister about the dinner. Ding Yu likely thinks he is interested in his sister and wants to separate them. Because of this, our boy explains through text that it was just a simple dinner and that he didn't stay long. Both Chen Yanfei and Ding Xiang are surprised to learn that he is actually going to the gym. Han Li reminds Chen Yanfei about the incident on the train, indirectly telling her that he is doing this for her. He then sends a photo of his progress, clearly bragging. Chen Yanfei can't believe how much he has improved in just a few days. Meanwhile, her friend quietly observes her reaction. Although Chen Yanfei insists that she merely admires our protagonist, Ding Xiang thinks otherwise. She believes her friend truly likes him. Just then, Han Li asks both girls out. Chen Yanfei shows the message to Ding Xiang and asks if she is interested. After learning that Ding Xiang doesn't want to go, Chen Yanfei pauses as she looks at her friend's expression. Realization slowly dawns on her. Ding Xiang also has feelings for our protagonist. Chen Yanfei replies that she will be busy. The protagonist feels confused, wondering why she agreed to come in the first place if she was going to be busy. At that moment, a text arrives from Yu Yun. The girl decides to snitch on Ting Ting. She thinks to herself that if she tells the boy the class president is a lesbian, with what happened in the restaurant as confirmation, he will definitely lose interest. She inwardly thanks Ting Ting for giving her this opportunity. Meanwhile, the boy is in shock after seeing the text and cannot believe what he is reading. Just then, a message arrives from his second account. He asks permission to head to the restroom. His trainer understands and asks if he wants to talk with his girlfriend. When Han Lai mentions she is not his girlfriend yet, the trainer wishes him luck. The protagonist is stunned for a moment, seeing Ting Ting talk about the kiss, and admit that part of her enjoyed it. He asks if she is straight. She replies that she is straight, only frustrated at the time and wanting to vent. The boy reflects on her behavior and concludes that she is completely messed up. From a physiological perspective, this is a self-protective stress response. Thinking further, he links the series of events from handing her the dog collar up to this point and concludes this must be some kind of butterfly effect caused by his regression. Because of this, he tells Ting Ting that something is wrong with her yang fire. Of course, she is clueless about what he means. The protagonist explains that her temper is far too strong and likely related to her menstrual cycle. She is shocked by how he figured it out. Because of this, she becomes more engaged in the conversation, asking for solutions and Chinese remedies. The boy finds her last reply amusing and continues to explain further. He gives a long explanation, describing it as a natural cause and saying she is meant to be dominated. This all makes sense to her. At the same time, she seems to realize something. Making an excuse, she claims she forgot something, leaving her friends confused and suspicious. Inside a cafe, she messages the protagonist. The protagonist replies that he booked a hotel room, which confuses her about the direction of the conversation. She tells him he is delusional if he thinks she will come. In response, the boy suggests inviting someone else if she refuses to come, making her even more confused. Ting Ting thinks the boy is only teasing her, but the moment she spots Pangi, anxiety rises. Seeing her love rival makes her wonder if he truly invited her. She calls to confirm. The boy answers from the hotel room and Ting Ting immediately asks if he invited Pangi. He seems confused at first, then asks if he isn't allowed to invite her over. Before she can respond, the call disconnects. Meanwhile, Ting Ting approaches Pangi and stops her midway. She mentions that it is late and asks where Pangi is heading. Pangi looks at her in confusion, finding her behavior odd. She explains that she is going home to check on her mother. Ting Ting remains unconvinced and skeptical. Pangi insists on going home, but Ting Ting insists on following, which makes Pangi furious. Ting Ting thinks to herself that there is no way Pangi will get ahead of her once more. With that, they stick together. To Ting Ting's shock, Pangi truly returns home. She realizes Pangi was telling the truth. Pangi's mother is surprised to see the class president. Ting Ting responds with a polite greeting. Hearing that she came because she was unwell makes the mother appear even more unwell. Pangi's mother already knows about Ting Ting and her daughter kissing, so she pretends to be sick to bring Pangi home for a discussion. Ting Ting arriving with her daughter only confirms her suspicion that the two are really together. Because of this, the mother decides to head to her room, leaving both girls staring in confusion. Pangi turns to Ting Ting, her annoyance visible. She blames her for the misunderstanding, and Ting Ting can only apologize. Sitting down, Pangi asks why Ting Ting followed her and jokingly wonders if she truly has feelings for her. Ting Ting replies in the same tone, saying it is natural for anyone to have feelings for her, considering she is both rich and beautiful. Pangi tells her to stop with the jokes, still upset about the stunt she pulled at the restaurant. Ting Ting finds her reaction amusing, considering Pangi is the one who made moves and tried to steal Han Li. Pangi sees Ting Ting's reaction and shouts, claiming she wants nothing to do with him, though her thoughts reveal otherwise. Ting Ting suddenly turns serious, expressing her thoughts about their relationship. Pangi listens to her for a brief moment before showing mild annoyance, as both of them are interested in the same guy. Hearing this, Ting Ting lets out a small laugh and asks about the booked hotel room. Pangi tilts her head in confusion. Ting Ting is shocked and realizes that the boy was serious about his invitation. Meanwhile, Pangi stares at her suspiciously. She can already guess the situation and understands why Ting Ting followed her home. Because of this, the class president makes an excuse and decides to leave. However, Pangi tackles her down and suggests that she stay, saying the night is dangerous. At the same time, Pangi's mother walks in on them bickering and misunderstands the situation. She feels relieved, thinking that her daughter is not the submissive one. After realizing that Pangi's mother is watching, Ting Ting immediately excuses herself and leaves. Pangi's mother is left speechless, while her daughter is annoyed that Ting Ting managed to escape. Later, the protagonist receives a text from Ting Ting asking about the hotel room. The boy stares at his phone, trying to understand what is happening. Soon after, Ting Ting sends another message demanding the hotel address, making him realize she was not joking. Inside a high-rise building, Han Li requests the best room available. Hearing this, the female staff member begins explaining the rooms while promoting their best services. Han Li politely cuts her off, saying he is here to check in. The staff offers to guide him to the suite. During this time, the boy recalls that in his previous life, hotels like these allowed direct room check-ins. He does this to avoid running into the class president and making the situation awkward. When they finally exit the elevator, the staff explains that this area is reserved for the presidential suite. He also receives special treatment, including a designated butler to assist him. Just like that, the protagonist proceeds with the check-in process. After completing the transaction using Pangi's father's money, the system finally rings with a notification, stating that he has received a complimentary gift for his spending. With that, the boy enters his room and instructs the butler to prepare the welcome package. Alone in the room, the system materializes a debit card. The boy is shocked to learn that the card covers 80% of hotel payments, while he only has to pay 20%. He quickly does the math and realizes the benefits of the card. However, the downside is that using the card prevents him from earning experience points from the system. At that moment, Ting Ting messages him, informing him that she has arrived. She begins to wonder if it is already too late to turn back. Almost as if reading her thoughts, the boy replies that she can leave if she feels uncomfortable. Fuming, she demands the room number, noting that it would be a hassle to leave after coming this far. After sending the room number and directions, Han Li soon hears a knock on the door. He opens it to find Ting Ting standing there, visibly tense, as she asks what kind of room he booked. He replies that it is the presidential suite and asks if the butler did not inform her. Ting Ting looks shocked after hearing this. She knows him as someone who is usually stingy when it comes to spending money. As she steps inside, she thinks this is her chance. She plans to gain the upper hand and demands an explanation, asking what he did with Pan Gi. In response, Han Li bursts into laughter. He coaxes her gently, his tone softening, leaving Ting Ting frozen in place. Changing the subject, he suggests taking a tour of the room. When the butler offers to show them around, both agree, and Han Li's butler begins by explaining more about the hotel. Midway through the explanation, Ting Ting grows uncomfortable with the way she is being addressed as Han Li's mistress. She asks the protagonist if this is really okay. He replies that it is part of the service and that he has already paid for it. The butler then proceeds to the bathroom and showcases the bathtub, leaving Ting Ting stunned by the sight. Meanwhile, Han Li remains observant. Although the hotel is considered 5-star, it has only one presidential suite. Not to mention, there is a familiar, outdated smell that suggests the room is rarely used. While Ting Ting is fascinated by the luxurious perfume scent, Han Li realizes this is likely due to the hotel's poor location. Turning to Ting Ting, he asks if she likes the smell. Leaning closer, he speaks in a gentle tone, saying that it suits her. Ting Ting immediately blushes and tells him not to tease her. Seeing this, Han Li's butler announces her departure, wishing them a pleasant stay at the hotel. After the butler leaves, Ting Ting comments on her choice of words. Han Li responds that it was just a polite phrase and wonders aloud if Ting Ting is being dirty-minded. She walks away, saying that he is the one with the dirty mind, and adds that she will be staying in the guest room. Because of this, Han Li tells her to pay for it, making her furious. In response, she grabs him by the hand and drags him into the bedroom. She opens a bottle of red wine and drinks directly from it. The boy is stunned and tries to stop her. However, Ting Ting ignores him. When she finally looks at him, she sees him staring at his phone, which only makes her angrier. She demands to know what he is doing. In response, Han Li shows her his phone. A message from Pan Gi is displayed, asking what he is doing. He asks Ting Ting how he should reply. Ting Ting crosses her arms and tells him to say that he is in a hotel with someone. The protagonist then asks what she is willing to do in exchange. His calm and composed demeanor irritates her even more. Because of this, she snatches his phone and drops it onto the ground. She tells him to start confessing to her. If the protagonist promises to become her boyfriend and stop playing around with other girls, she promises to give him what he wants in return. With that, she takes the initiative and kisses him. Unsurprisingly, she notices that same sweet, familiar taste. In a swift motion, the boy flips her onto the bed. Before Ting Ting can even process what is happening, she finds herself handcuffed. Seeing her flustered reaction, Han Li reminds her of their earlier conversation in the cab. He tells her that he is the one in charge this time, before commenting on her reaction. What follows is an intense back and forth, like a rapid exchange in a Dragon Ball fight. Eventually, Ting Ting apologizes for always calling him a dog. Talking about this guy, after 91 chapters, the protagonist finally hits, causing her to suggest becoming his second or third girlfriend, as she begs him to stop. When he asks if it hurts, she realizes that his touch is actually gentle. She feels embarrassed, especially because of the things she said earlier. Because of this, Han Li tells her that she is too stubborn and domineering. Unfortunately, he admits that he is exactly the same due to the goals he has in life. He explains that he is willing to do anything to achieve those goals. That very fact makes them incompatible, which is why her proposal cannot work. Han Li clarifies that he is not saying this because he cannot treat her well, but because he knows she is not someone suited for the long term. He uses her friend Fei Fei as an example. Although Fei Fei is accommodating and gives in to her demands, Ting Ting does not like her as much as she likes Pan Gi. Everything suddenly makes sense, why he constantly teases her and deliberately gets on her nerves. Ting Ting realizes she feels the same way. She fears that if he ever stops provoking her, she will eventually lose interest. Then he brings up the idea of her becoming his second girlfriend. With a sheepish grin, he jokingly adds that even if it does not work out, they could still end up sleeping together. She calls him a jerk and tells him to get food because she is hungry. Han Li replies sarcastically that she still has the strength to fight, yet somehow has the energy to complain about being hungry. Ting Ting insists that she is both tired and hungry, adding that it is all his fault. However, the boy replies that he is already done and casually suggests going for a second round, making her wonder how he still has so much energy. Half an hour later, the food arrives, and the protagonist thanks his butler. Turning to Ting Ting, he suggests that she start eating. Out of nowhere, Ting Ting asks who his main girlfriend is. The question catches him off guard, so he counters by asking which choice is better, Pan Ji or Chen Yanfei. After some hesitation, Ting Ting suggests that Chen Yanfei is the better option. Han Li finds her answer surprisingly quick and asks why. She explains that she is usually his second choice, and naturally she cannot allow Pan Gi to be first. While other guys struggle just to get attention, the protagonist is drowning in options. When he asks if Ting Ting is fine with anyone being his girlfriend, as long as it is not Pan Gi, she nods, saying that he finally understands her point. Finding her logic interesting, he asks if she is satisfied. Ting Ting misunderstands and asks if he is trying to kill her, leaving him stunned. The next day, the protagonist returns to his dorm. He immediately runs into Ding Yu, who rushes over and begins apologizing profusely. Confused, Han Li asks why he is apologizing. Ding Yu replies that he did not mean to betray him. The word betrayal only confuses Han Li further. So Zhao Bei explains that Pan Ge was looking for him the previous day, and Ding Yu accidentally revealed that he was not in the dorm. Realizing his mistake, Ding Yu begins begging for mercy. Annoyed, Han Li asks if he also told his sister. Unfortunately, he did. Han Li is ready to crack Ding Yu's skull open just to check if his brain is smooth, but Xiao Bei quickly stops him. Han Li knows that if Ding Yu's sister knows about what happened yesterday, then Chen Yanfei probably already knows as well. To divert his attention, Xiao Bei starts explaining what they did the previous day. Han Li is surprised to hear that they went gambling and asks if that is not illegal. The boys quickly correct him, saying it is not gambling, just a few guys hanging out and stacking money for fun. Apparently, they pick a random dorm room and use it as their gathering spot. After their long explanation, Xiao Bei invites Han Li along, believing it will be fun. He also reveals that the student council president will be present. Han Li vaguely remembers the guy and points out that the reason the school has not interfered is because the student council president is involved. Ding Yu also warns him to be cautious of the student union president. Han Li asks why, since he barely knows the guy, let alone has a grudge against him. Ding Yu explains that the games are how the president earns money. On top of that, everyone knows the guy is obsessed with Ting Ting, making him a direct rival. Apparently, there are others who dislike Han Li as well, but Xiao Bei believes they are not worth mentioning. Han Li acknowledges the warning and says he will go with them. Xiao Bei is excited, but reminds him that the real troublemakers are the ones interested in Pan Gi. Hearing this, Han Li breaks into a cold sweat. If news of him kissing Pan Gi and staying at a hotel with Ting Ting spreads, it would cause a huge problem. Since that is the case, he decides to take the initiative. With that in mind, he follows them later that evening. Ding Yu informs him that the guy he greeted earlier is acting as security. Inside the room, several guys are already having fun. One person immediately recognizes Han Li. Only then does he realize that the guy is one of his classmates. Ding Yu quickly takes the opportunity to introduce him to a senior. Meanwhile, the others watch the interaction in silence. One of them wonders why the person who showed up had to be Han Li. Throughout all of this, the student union president simply observes from the sidelines, saying nothing. Brother Wang offers our protagonist a seat. Seeing this, one of the guys mentions the trading competition. Apparently, our protagonist's classmate was bragging about taking first place, but ended up losing to him. Witnessing this humiliation, he replies that our protagonist has already been seen sharing utensils with Pan Ji. This makes the guys curious about Han Li's relationship with Panji. Brother Wang is also interested and comments that our protagonist is indeed impressive. Han Li realizes that the guys are deliberately putting him in a tough spot, so he explains the situation, claiming it is not as it seems, that both of them just bicker sometimes, and he is simply following Pange's father's order to look after her. Brother Wang asks with genuine interest if it is really like that, concluding that their situation isn't as people assume. However, the green-haired guy accuses Han Lai of spouting nonsense. He thinks Han Lai is lying about knowing Panji's parents. When Han Lai asks what the guy is talking about, he explains that he indeed knows Panji's father. This statement makes the green-haired guy furious. Han Lai doesn't understand why the guy is getting worked up. He insists that it shouldn't bother him. Xiao Bing is about to jump in and explain, but Ding Yu, knowing the guy will only make the situation worse, stops him. Brother Wang then asks if Han Li really knows Panji's parents. In response, Han Li tells them that he manages Panji's father's trading account, so naturally they are in touch. The union president, who has been silent until now, suddenly becomes interested. Judging from the way Han Li speaks, he asks if Han Li is from a rich family. Han Li explains that his family has a knack for money. It's safe to say they normally deal with finances. This leaves both of his roommates in shock. With this, Han Li gains experience from the system for acting, because only he knows that his mother is a cashier. Generally speaking, he isn't lying. Changing the topic, the green-haired guy suggests they play some games. Han Li is about to decline, but the system rewards him with a new skill. He unlocks a skill in gambling. Because of this, he changes his mind and eventually robs everyone of their money. Later, the green-haired guy is swearing in frustration. The union president calls him an idiot for knowing Han Li was crazy and still challenging him. Brother Wang doesn't get hostile with Han Li. To him, Han Li is the chillest guy he has ever seen. He also doesn't see Pangi as a girl worth stressing over, leaving the green-haired guy momentarily stunned. Remembering something, he turns to the president and asks about his progress with Ting Ting. Seeing his reaction, he informs him that Han Li apparently invited her to dinner with another girl. The guy is shocked that Han Li spent a night out with Ting Ting. Later that night, Han Li is on his phone. He chats with Brother Wang and thinks the guy is the only normal person in the dorm. He also thinks that with Brother Wang's personality, it could save him trouble if they ever become business partners. Unable to sleep, Han Li decides to message the class president, only to discover that Ting Ting has blocked him once again. Ever since then, nothing feels right. It's not just Ting Ting, it's as if the whole girl group has gone on strike. Not knowing what went wrong, he decides to get lunch. At the cafeteria, he suddenly runs into Pangi, who wraps her arm around his and asks what he wants for lunch. Han Li quickly pulls his arm away and tells Pangi to stop. She looks at him with a cute, confused expression, clearly not understanding what is going on. Still, she demands to know why he has been avoiding her and ignoring her messages. Trying to chase her off, Han Li casually suggests booking a hotel room. To his absolute horror, she immediately agrees and even insists on telling her dad before heading to their family's hotel. Panicking, Han Li runs off, leaving Panji standing there in confusion. Seeing him actively avoid her only convinces Panji that something really did happen between him and Ting Ting. However, instead of confronting him, she decides to play the long game. Even so, she cannot believe that Han Lai and Ting Ting are already making out. Later, in Han Lai's classroom, he spots Yu Yun sitting beside Ting Ting. Yu Yun calls out to him, but the moment Han Lai makes eye contact with Ting Ting, she tilts her head sideways and looks away. Han Lai immediately understands she is deliberately ignoring him. This only leaves him wondering what he did wrong. Later, in the gym, Han Li tries to figure out what is going on and why Ting Ting is avoiding him. Her behavior in class feels strange, and he struggles to find a way to talk to her. That is when he remembers his second account and decides to message the class president instead. Ting Ting is surprised that he actually reaches out. She remembers sleeping with Han Lai, and since she cannot tell anyone about it, she hesitates, wondering if she should share it with him. Changing the subject, Han Lai asks if everything is okay. As expected, he notices immediately that something is off. Ting Ting replies that she actually slept with Han Lai. The response leaves him stunned. As they continue talking, Han Lai asks why she is avoiding him. Ting Ting explains that she feels guilty because they are fundamentally incompatible. Hearing this, Han Lai asks if she plans to give up. She shakes her head and says no. To her, Han Lai is like a wild, untamed animal, completely obsessed with his goals. Instead of playing his game like a love-struck fool, she wants to become independent. She plans to study harder, work harder, and only after achieving her own goals will she consider herself worthy of standing beside him. That is how she plans to win him over. Hearing this, Han Li bursts into laughter. So she is not avoiding him out of rejection, she is avoiding him to control herself. He finds the realization extremely interesting. At that moment, he understands that he has underestimated her. Still, he decides that regardless of the situation, he will not rest until he completely tames Ting Ting. Only then will his revenge be complete. Just then, his trainer calls out to him, asking if he wants to start martial arts training. Seeing Han Lai's confused expression, the trainer suggests beginning with weighted rings, explaining that they will improve his technical movement. Han Li considers it and decides to talk to Brother Wang for help, using this as a way to build a proper connection. Later, he meets Brother Wang, who asks if he is interested in fitness. Brother Wang suggests using one of the vacant dorm rooms, but Han Li says he has a better idea. He casually reveals that he already has a suite rented. Brother Wang is both shocked and intrigued. Renting a hotel while staying in the dorm sounds ridiculously expensive. Han Li tilts his head, as if asking what he means. Brother Wang explains just how absurdly costly that would be, only for Han Li to calmly correct him, saying he rented a presidential suite, which is even more expensive. At that point, Brother Wang is convinced that Han Li must be a rich kid who knows how to hide his strength. Han Li appreciates the conversation and offers to let Brother Wang use the presidential suite whenever he needs it. Brother Wang thanks him for the generous offer. Just as they begin discussing other matters, Pan Ji suddenly appears and calls out to Han Li. She comments that she did not see him in the cafeteria all day and only now realizes he was talking to a friend. She then suggests that, if he is done, he should accompany her for an outing. Han Li immediately suggests that she invite Ting Ting instead. From the side, Brother Wang watches in shock. This is the first time he has ever seen Pan Gi actively approach a boy, confirming that their relationship is far from simple. Han Li then suggests continuing their discussion another time, saying he is done for now. Pan Gi looks surprised at this. Turning to Brother Wang, she greets him politely and asks to borrow Han Li for a while. Brother Wang quickly insists that they are already done talking and says he was just about to leave. The scene shifts to Han Lai and Pan Gi walking along the street. When he asks why she followed him, Pan Gi replies that she was only trying to tease him. However, Han Lai notices something off about her expression. He tells her that it is fine as long as she is happy. He also admits that he originally wanted to see her, which catches her by surprise. Han Li then explains that his official reason was to meet her father and report on the trading account, including the profits he earned. Pan Gi realizes that he had planned to visit her house all along. She tries to stop him, but quickly understands that she does not really have the right to. In response, Han Lei suddenly grabs her hand. He says that meeting her father was just an excuse, that what he really wanted was to see her. His words make her blush instantly. Seeing this, Han Li teases her, pointing out how shy she is despite the fact that they have already kissed in public. When he suggests that they go to her house together, Pan Gi falls into deep thought, reflecting on everything that has happened. Han Lai watches her quietly as she struggles with her decision. In the end, she agrees to let him follow her home. However, she suddenly suggests that they go watch a movie first. She buys the tickets, while Han Li handles the food. Seeing his reaction, Pan Gi takes some popcorn and playfully tries to feed him. Han Li goes along with it, and for a moment they genuinely look like a couple. Then his expression changes. Out of the corner of his eye, he spots a guy stalking them and even taking photos. Han Li frowns, calling the guy an idiot for not even turning off the camera flash. As he analyzes the situation, he wonders if this is somehow part of Pan Gi's plan. Inside the movie theater, Han Li watches the film, thinking about how many years it has been since he last enjoyed a movie in a theater like this. However, he soon notices that Pan Gi keeps checking her phone. He tells her to stop. Pan Gi responds by questioning him instead, pointing out that they are the only ones in the theater. Apparently, she booked the entire screening. Even knowing this, Han Li still takes her phone away. She protests, but he tells her that the phone is distracting him. He also warns her to behave herself, or he might accidentally share some interesting stories about her and Ting Ting with her father. Hearing this, Panda immediately backs down. She tells him not to speak nonsense to her dad. Meanwhile, she is secretly thrilled, knowing that she has already posted pictures from their date online. Han Li can tell she is acting again. The scene then shifts to the two of them arriving at Pan Gi's house. Hearing her daughter's voice, Pan Ji's mother initially worries that she has brought Ting Ting home again. To her shock, the person standing beside Pan Ji is Han Lai. Her concern immediately fades, and she asks why Pan Ji did not inform her beforehand. Han Li answers calmly, saying it wasn't Pan Gi's fault. He explains that they only went to watch a movie, and that the timing happened to be convenient for him to visit her husband. Pan Ji's mother is stunned. She cannot believe that her daughter actually went on a date with a boy. Because of this, she quickly calls Pan Ji's father. Over the phone, she urgently tells him to come home and casually drops the bomb that Pan Gi and Han Li went on a date and even watched a movie together. Meanwhile, Pan Gi can only stare at Han Lai in disbelief. Turning to Pan Gi, Han Lai suggests that she give him a tour of the house. She immediately refuses. This prompts him to casually mention her kissing the class president. Pan Ji tells him to stop, leaving her with no choice but to comply. Later, Pan Ji takes him upstairs. Han Lai is surprised to see an entire collection of manga and asks if she enjoys reading. Pan Ji replies that she loves collecting special editions, and many of them even have the author's signature. At the same time, she quietly takes the opportunity to observe Han Li more closely. She thinks that if not for his bad attitude, he might actually be even more attractive. Han Li suddenly asks why she is staring at him. Pan Gi quickly denies it, then adds that even if she were staring, she asks whether he would charge her money for it. Han Li asks if he really looks like that kind of person. Then, without missing a beat, he tells her that if she wants to give him money, he would gladly accept it. Pan Gi immediately calls him shameless. In response, Han Li asks if she remembers the first thing he ever said to her when they first met. When Pan Gi asks what it was, he reminds her that he told her her eyes were beautiful and that she had a stunning core. Naturally, this makes her flustered. Still, she mutters to herself that his eyes are actually quite nice too. Noticing her reaction, Han Lai asks why she is staring at him, but she quickly denies it. Realizing that the two of them are alone, Pan Gi feels her heart start to race. When Han Lai makes direct eye contact, she immediately turns her head away and tells him not to look at her like that. She then abruptly changes the subject and asks what he has been doing with Ting Ting. She is about to remind him of their deal, but suddenly freezes mid-sentence. At that moment, Pan Gi's mother calls out, informing them that her father will be home soon. Realizing what is about to happen, Pan Gi panics and hurriedly tells Han Li that her mom is coming. However, instead of responding, Han Li simply ignores her and leans in to kiss her. Pan Gi freezes for a moment as she tastes that familiar sweetness. When she finally regains her composure, she quickly creates some distance between them. Han Li notices her flustered reaction and calmly tells her to be quiet. He reminds her that her mother is nearby and that she should not do anything that might give them away. Pan Gi clenches her fists, silently promising that she will get back at him later. When Pan Gi meets her mother outside the room, her mom does that thing parents always do and immediately understands the situation. Because of this, she insists that Pan Gi make Han Li stay for dinner, reassuring her that there is a guest room and that he does not need to worry about staying over. In her heart, she thinks this is the perfect opportunity, though she hopes her daughter keeps herself together and does not scare the boy off. Just then, Han Li appears and casually explains that Pan Gi was only showing him her manga collection. Pan Gi's mother instantly seizes the opportunity and invites him to stay for dinner. Han Li replies that he had planned to go to the gym, but Pan Gi's mother tells him that going a little late will not hurt anyone. As she says this, she shoots Pan Gi a meaningful look. Pan Gi immediately understands her mother's intentions. Turning to Han Lai, she suggests that he at least stay for the meal, adding that he can't exercise even on an empty stomach. Pan Ji's mother is delighted to see her daughter finally taking the initiative and deliberately acting cute. Watching this, she feels hopeful that things might actually work out. With the matter settled, Pan Gi's mother decides to give the two of them some space and quietly leaves them alone. Once her mom leaves, silence fills the room. Han Li wants to ask something, But Panga startles and covers her mouth, thinking he plans to kiss her again. Blushing, she insists that no matter what he does, she will not fall for him and demands to know if he is seeing Ting Ting. Feeling puzzled, the protagonist asks how he is supposed to know it is not like he keeps constant surveillance on her. Panji responds by demanding to know what he means, adding that Ting Ting told her both of them spent time together. Hearing this, the protagonist lets out an exhausted sigh and asks how she can possibly confirm that what Ting Ting said is true. After thinking about it for a moment, she reveals that he was not in his dorm at the time. In response, Han Li explains that he was hanging out with some seniors. Pan Ji looks visibly surprised when he mentions Brother Wang's name. He explains further that it is all thanks to her getting mixed up with him. Dan Zihao and her admirers now target him as well. Pan Ji is stunned to hear this and asks if what he says is true. He confirms it, explaining that this is why he makes friends with the seniors to protect himself. It turns out Pan Ji did want Dan Zihao and the guys to teach the protagonist a lesson. Now she can only hope things do not escalate to the point where Han Li gets hurt. Elsewhere, one of her followers is furious after seeing Pan Gi's post with her and Han Li together. Clearly enraged, he declares that he will teach the protagonist a lesson. He turns and requests backup. However, his friend claims to be sick. In truth, he is afraid of going against the protagonist. Meanwhile, back at Panji's house, her dad returns and is genuinely taken by surprise. He calmly asks why his daughter is wearing a school uniform. Panji shyly explains that it is because Han Li wanted to see her wearing it, while secretly thinking about how restless he was earlier and how he kept kissing her. Seeing this, Panji's dad instantly realizes what is happening. Sure enough, he first advises both of them to behave well, then turns to the protagonist, invites him to stay for dinner, and offers to give him a watch. Hearing this, the boy reveals that he came to visit and also to give a report about Panji's dad's investment. Panji's dad becomes intrigued, and Han Lai enters his element, delivering trading strategies and advice on mistakes to avoid. He turns into an employee giving a quarterly report. As for Pan Gi, she watches closely and realizes this dog of a man becomes handsome whenever he gets serious. Finishing his report, Pan Gi's dad feels impressed. He sees Han Lai as a smart and capable young man. However, making money is not the problem. Setting his daughter straight remains the main priority. With this in mind, he suggests Pan Gi give them some room to discuss and perhaps help her mom prepare dinner. Pan Gi obeys and heads out. Once alone, Pan Ji's dad expresses his excitement, telling the boy he performs so well that he truly wants to help him. By help, he means that as long as Han Li continues delivering good results, Pan Gi's dad promises to connect him with other investors. But first, he wants to hear about his progress with his own daughter. Han Li expects this question. Nonetheless, he explains vaguely, saying they chat and occasionally go on dates. In addition, he studies and monitors his trading account, so he cannot find much time to hang out with Panji. Hearing this, Panji's dad offers to help if he faces any challenges. Secretly, he thinks to himself that the young man need not work so hard. Marrying his daughter will save him from ever working in the future. Out of curiosity, he asks about her class president. Han Li replies that they are friends and in the same class, so they naturally study together and eat meals. Pangi's dad almost faints after hearing that. However, before they can say more, the scene cuts abruptly to the dining table. Throughout the meal, the protagonist reflects on the conversation with Panji's dad, considering the future investments and opportunities in upcoming business trends. With this in mind, he thinks now is the time to put his plans into action. Suddenly, the table freezes. Everyone turns toward Han Lai. Han Lai demands an explanation. It turns out Pan Ji took a photo of him while calling him handsome, adding that she could not resist. Seeing this, both of Pan Ji's parents feel excited, thinking their daughter is finally showing interest in the protagonist. Meanwhile, Han Lai feels confused, wondering why she could not take a photo without drawing attention. He thinks how she low-key causes trouble and already knows what she plans. As expected, she posts the image with captions about him and her dad. Within a minute, the class president and one of her followers react to the post. The poor guy simps hard, wondering why Panji shows interest in the protagonist. His friend states the obvious. She likes him, and the post proves they are officially together. He grows angry, telling his friend he knows nothing about Panji. Things grow serious as one of them requests the keys to open the protagonist's dorm room, asking if Huang Wei isn't angry after the protagonist messed with him. Huang Wei, knowing the protagonist, agrees to hand over his key but wants nothing to do with them. Silently, he mocks them, calling them fools. Another person jumps into the conversation and calls Huang Wei a coward. Huang Wei wonders aloud if Kong Yize wants in on the action, considering he shows no interest in Pan Gade. In response, Kong Yize states that the protagonist is involved with Ting Ting, apparently the girl he likes, and apparently that alone gives enough reason to want to beat the crap out of him. Huang Wei slaps Kong Yize's hand away. He warns the group that they have no idea what they are walking into. Despite Huang Wei's warning, the group proceeds and lays out their plan. They decide to carry out the operation once night falls. Huang Wei gives up, stating the group should do whatever they want and not drag him into their mess. The group assures him not to worry. There is only one Han Lai and 3 of them. Dealing with him will be a piece of cake. Huang Wei does not like where this is heading, so he decides to fetch Brother Wang. Seeing this, the student union president asks where Huang Wei is heading. He replies that it is none of his business. Before leaving, he asks the union president if he thinks no one knows he is the one orchestrating everything from behind the scenes. He reminds the president that if the guys get into trouble, they will not be able to face the consequences. The president responds with a clueless expression, as if he has no idea what Huang Wei is talking about. Seeing this, Huang Wei leaves, slamming the door behind him. Once the coast is clear, the president makes a call, informing the other side about the plan. Meanwhile, the protagonist enters his room. The group receives the report that he has just gone inside. Now, all they need is 10 minutes until lights out before they teach him a lesson.